Hey guys, just want to say thanks for tuning in to Wide Awake Horror today. Today we've got some true horror stories for you guys to hear. Now, if you enjoy these stories, as always, please smash that like button. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join the family. Now, let's enjoy some new stories.
I almost didn't go. That's the part that keeps replaying in my head. If I had just stayed home, if I had just kept scrolling, if I had just ordered cheap takeout and watched dumb videos like I usually do on a Friday night, none of it would have happened. But I went. I showered, put on the only decent jacket I own, and told myself I was done being alone. We matched 3 days before. Her name was Maren. Her pictures were normal, not model level perfect, just real. Brown hair, kind of messy. One photo of her sitting on a kitchen counter with flour on her cheek. One in a parking lot at night, blurry like her friend took it by accident. She didn't have a big bio. Just said she liked old horror movies and hated loud restaurants. That was it. I liked that. We didn't even message that much. It was quick. She suggested a bar near the river, one that's kind of hidden under the train tracks. I've been there once. It's dark even during the day. At night, it feels like the ceiling is pressing down on you. She said it was quiet on weekdays. I said cool. I got there 10 minutes early because I didn't want to be the guy who shows up late. The outside of the place smelled like wet metal and old rain. A train passed overhead while I was walking up, and a whole ground rattled under my shoes. It felt dramatic in a stupid way, like a scene in a movie where something bad is about to happen, but I ignored that. I always overthink stuff. When I walked in, I saw her right away. She was already there, sitting in a booth in the back corner, head down, shoulders shaking. At first, I thought she was laughing. Then I realized she was crying. Not just a few tears. Full on crying, face in her hands. People at the bar were pretending not to notice. The bartender kept looking over like he was waiting for something. I froze by the door for a second. I thought maybe I had the wrong girl. But it was her. Same brown hair. Same jacket from one of her pictures. I walked over slowly, heart pounding for no good reason. When she looked up at me, her eyes were red and swollen. Mascara smeared under them. And before I even sat down, she started apologizing. Not just for crying. She kept saying she was sorry for what she had to do this time. That's the exact phrase she used. This time. I didn't know what that meant. I thought maybe she was talking about canceling last minute or bringing drama into a first date. I sat down across from her and told myself to stay calm. People cry. People have bad days. But she wouldn't stop saying she was sorry. Her hands were shaking on the table. She kept glancing over my shoulder like she was waiting for someone to come up behind me. I turned around once to check. No one was there. Just a couple of guys playing pool and an older man staring at his drink. I asked if she was okay. She nodded too fast. Then she wiped her face with her sleeve and tried to act normal. She asked me how my day was. It was so forced that it made my stomach twist. I noticed something else then. Her phone was on the table, screen down. It kept buzzing. Not vibrating like a text every few minutes. It was constant. Like someone was calling her over and over. She didn't flip it over. She didn't answer it. She just kept saying she was sorry. I started to feel like I had walked into something already in motion. Like I was late to a situation I didn't understand. She finally took a deep breath and leaned closer to me. Her voice dropped, but I'm not going to repeat what she said word for word. I just remember the way she looked at me, like she was memorizing my face. She told me she didn't pick me randomly. That part made my chest feel tight. She said she had to choose carefully, that it mattered, that she tried not to pick anyone who looked mean, or who had family photos in their profile. I asked her what she was talking about. She looked over my shoulder again. And that's when the bartender walked up and set 2 glasses of water on the table without either of us ordering them. He didn't look at me. He looked at her, and she nodded at him. It was small, but I saw it. I asked if she knew him. She didn't answer. She just stared at the water like it was something dangerous. Her phone kept buzzing. Finally, she flipped it over. There were no notifications, no missed calls. The screen was black. But it was still buzzing in her hand. I heard it. I felt it through the table. She put it back down slowly. Then she told me she needed me to listen carefully and not make a scene. That was when I started thinking about leaving. just standing up and walking out. But I didn't. I was too confused. She said she had been meeting men from the app for weeks, not for dates, for something else. She said it like she hated herself for it. She said every time she didn't do it, someone got hurt. I actually laughed a little at that. But she wasn't smiling. She told me to look around the bar again, slowly, not obvious. So I did. The two guys playing pool were gone. The older man at the bar was staring straight at me now. And the bartender was gone too. The place felt quieter than it should have been. When I looked back at her, she was crying again, but softer this time, like she was trying to hold it in. She said she always hopes the guy won't show up, that they'll cancel, that she can just go home, but they always show up. I asked her what she meant by do it. She didn't answer directly. She just slid something across the table toward me. It was a small card, black. No logo, no name, just a number printed on it. And my name written in pen underneath. I swear to God I never gave her my last name. Not on the app, not in messages, but it was there, first and last. My stomach dropped. She told me that once the date starts, it can't be stopped. That was the rule. Rule for who? She didn't say. The front door of the bar locked with a loud click. I heard it clear as day. I turned in my seat. The older man at the bar stood up. He wasn't old anymore when he stood. He moved too smooth, too steady. Mrn grabbed my hand across the table. Her fingers were ice cold. She kept saying she was sorry, that she tried to pick someone who looked like they'd forgive her, someone who didn't look like they'd fight back too hard. That's when it hit me. I wasn't here for a date. I was here to be handed over. The buzzing started again, louder this time, not just from her phone, from everywhere, like it was in the walls. The man started walking toward us. Mrn stood up suddenly and pulled me with her. She whispered something about the back door. I don't know why she decided to help me. Maybe she changed her mind. Maybe she always tries at the last second. We ran toward the hallway near the bathrooms. The lights flickered overhead. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. The back door was chained shut. She looked at me like she expected that. The man was behind us now, not rushing, just walking. Mrn turned to me with this broken look on her face. She said it only works if she delivered to me herself. That if I run, they go after someone else. Someone random. I didn't understand how she knew all this. I didn't want to understand. She pushed me toward the end of the hallway where there was a storage room, told me to hide, said maybe it would buy time. I didn't argue. I ran inside and shut the door quietly. There was a shelf of cleaning supplies and a mop bucket. No windows. Through the thin door, I could hear footsteps. Slow. Calm. Then I heard her crying again, louder now, like she was breaking apart. I didn't hear any fighting, no yelling, just the buzzing, and then silence. Complete silence. I waited. I don't know how long. 10 minutes, maybe 30. My legs were shaking so bad I had to sit on the floor. Eventually, I pushed the door open a crack. The hallway was empty. The bar was empty too. No bartender, no man, no Mrn. Just the 2 glasses of water still on the table. And her phone. I walked over and picked it up. No cracks, no damage, screen black. It started buzzing in my hand again. This time the screen lit up. It was the dating app. A new match. My profile picture staring back at me. And message already sent from my account to some girl I've never seen before, asking if she wanted to meet at a quiet bar under the train tracks. I dropped the phone. When I looked up, the bartender was back behind the counter, wiping a glass like nothing happened. He looked at me and gave a small nod. I walked out of there without saying anything. The next morning, the app was still on my phone. I don't remember reinstalling it. There was a new message waiting. From Mrn. Her profile picture was different. She was smiling this time. No red eyes. No smeared mascara. The message just said she was sorry it had to be me. I knew something was off before my phone even buzzed. It was just one of those nights where everything feels slightly wrong, like the air is thicker than it should be. I almost canceled on him twice that day. Not because he said anything weird. He actually seemed normal. That was the weird part. We matched on a random Tuesday night when I couldn't sleep. His name was Aaron. Simple profile. A few pictures hiking, one in a coffee shop, one blurry gym selfie. His bio said he liked cooking and bad horror movies. Nothing dramatic. No red flags. He didn't try too hard in messages either. No over-the-top compliments. No cringe lines. Just steady, calm replies. He suggested a late-night diner outside the city. Not one of those trendy places. This one was old, open 24 hours, mostly truck drivers and tired college kids. I actually liked that idea. Public place. Bright lights. People around. When I got there, it was colder than I expected. The parking lot was huge and half empty. The diner had that yellow glow through the windows like it was stuck in the early 2000s. I sat in my car for a minute scrolling through our messages again. Nothing strange. No weird phrasing. No hints. He was already inside when I walked in. He waved at me from a booth near the back. Not the darkest corner, but not right in the center either. Somewhere in between. Strategic but subtle. I noticed that later. He looked exactly like his pictures. Same dark hair. Same kind of calm face. He stood up when I walked over and smiled like he'd known me for years. The first 20 minutes were normal. Almost boring. We talked about work. I told him about my classes. He asked questions. Real ones. He didn't check his phone. He didn't scan the room constantly like some guys do. He was focused. But there was something about the way he looked at me that made my skin crawl a little. Not in a creepy, obvious way. It was more like he was measuring something, like he was checking boxes in his head. The waitress came over and took our order. He let me order first. He paid attention to what I chose. That detail matters later. At some point, I realized he wasn't really talking about himself much. Every time I asked him something personal, he gave short answers and then turned it back on me. I didn't think too much of it at the time. Some people are just private. The diner felt quieter as the night went on. A couple of truckers left. A group of teenagers in hoodies paid and walked out laughing. Soon it was just us and one older guy at the counter. That's when my phone buzzed. I ignored it at first. I didn't want to be rude, but it buzzed again, longer this time, like a notification, not a text. He glanced out at my phone when it lit up on the table. I flipped it over and looked. It was the dating app. A notification banner across my screen. Your match has completed this step before. That was it. No explanation. No context. Just that sentence. I stared at it for a few seconds trying to understand what step it meant. I hadn't done anything on the app since I arrived. I hadn't updated my profile. I hadn't unmatched anyone. I slowly looked up at him. He was already staring at me. And smiling. Not a confused smile. Not a curious one. It was small. Controlled. Like he'd been waiting for that exact moment. I felt my stomach drop. I laughed awkwardly and said something about the app being glitchy. He didn't respond. He just kept smiling, watching my reaction like it mattered more than the notification itself. My brain started racing. What step? Meeting in person? Checking in a location? Some kind of safety feature? I opened the app. There was a new screen I'd never seen before. It looked almost like a progress tracker. A thin bar at the top. A checklist underneath with vague phrases. Arrived at meeting location. Confirmed identity. Continued interaction. The first two were marked as completed. I never marked anything. I never checked in. My heart started beating so loud I could hear it in my ears. He leaned back in the booth like he was completely relaxed. Hands folded casually, still watching me. I scrolled down. There was a small information icon next to the notification. I tapped it. It said something about improving user safety and gathering anonymous behavioral data to prevent harmful patterns. It mentioned repeated behavioral sequences. It mentioned prior completions. I didn't understand what I was reading. I looked up again. He tilted his head slightly like he was studying me. There was no confusion in his face. No surprise. It hit me then. He knew about the notification. The waitress came back with our food. The timing felt wrong. Too perfect. She set the plates down and didn't look at either of us. Just walked away quickly. I glanced around the diner. The older guy at the counter was gone. The place felt emptier than before. I looked back at my phone. Another buzz. Step 3 available. My throat felt dry. He finally spoke, but I'm not repeating it. The tone was light, casual, but there was something under it, like a test. I asked him if he'd ever seen that notification before. He didn't answer directly. He just said the app updates all the time. New features. Then he took a bite of his food like nothing weird was happening. I noticed his plate was barely touched. He hadn't really been eating, just pushing things around with his fork. I checked the app again. Under the progress tracker, there was a faint gray line of text. This user has successfully completed this sequence in prior interactions. Successfully. That word made my hand start shaking. Completed what sequence? I thought about the checklist. Arrived at meeting location. Confirmed identity. Continued interaction. What came next? My phone buzzed again. Step 3 completed. I never pressed anything. I looked up at him so fast my chair scraped against the floor. He was smiling wider now. Not crazy, not exaggerated, just satisfied. The lights in the diner flickered once, just a quick dim and back. I opened the app again. A new step appeared. Isolation phase initiated. I looked around the diner. The waitress was gone. The front door that had been propped slightly open earlier was now closed. The neon open sign in the window flickered off. My chest felt tight. I stood up, pretending I needed the restroom. He didn't try to stop me. He just said something about not taking too long. His voice was calm, too calm. I walked toward the hallway by the bathrooms and checked my phone again. The app had a small map now. A dot showing my location inside the diner. Another dot directly across from it. His. There was text at the bottom. Repeat pattern confirmed. I felt sick. I scrolled further. There were blurred profile pictures underneath. Multiple. All female. Each one had a small green check mark next to their name. Completed. My hands were sweating so bad I almost dropped my phone. The bathroom hallway felt colder than the rest of the diner. The lights buzzed overhead. I didn't go inside. I just stood there staring at the screen. There was a final step grayed out at the bottom. Departure. It wasn't marked yet. I heard his footsteps behind me. Slow, not rushed. I turned around. He was standing a few feet away, hands in his jacket pockets. Still smiling. He told me I looked pale. I tried to act normal. Said I wasn't feeling well. He nodded like he expected that. My phone buzzed again. Final step pending. I looked at him and for the first time I saw something different in his eyes. Not anger, not excitement, just routine. Like this was a process. Like I was part of a checklist. I pushed past him and walked quickly back toward the main area of the diner. The lights flickered again. The parking lot outside looked darker than before. I grabbed my bag from the booth. He didn't grab me, didn't block me. He just watched. My phone buzzed one last time as I reached the door. Departure failed. I looked up. The door wouldn't open. I pulled harder. Locked. I turned back around slowly. He was standing near the counter now. The neon sign flickered back on for a second, then off again. My phone screen changed. Restarting sequence. His smile didn't fade. I don't remember how I got out. I just remember running across the parking lot at some point, my phone still buzzing in my hand. When I finally got home, the app was gone from my phone. Deleted. Like it had never been there. The next day, I got a text from an unknown number. It was just a screenshot. A progress tracker. 3 steps completed. I did not even want to download Tinder again. I was bored, yeah, but not desperate. It was one of those slow Sundays where the sky looks gray for no reason and your apartment feels smaller than usual. I was lying on my couch, scrolling through old photos, thinking about deleting half of them and starting over. That mood where you just want something different to happen. So I downloaded it again. I set up my profile in like 10 minutes. Same pictures I always use. One at the beach from last summer, one with my dog. One random mirror pic that is not great but not terrible either. My bio was simple. Just said I liked late night drives and bad horror movies. Nothing dramatic. Nothing weird. Her name was Leela. We matched that same night. She messaged first. That already caught my attention. Most girls do not message first. She said she liked my dog. Asked what breed he was. It felt normal. Easy. Her profile was kind of minimal. 3 pictures, all indoors. One on a couch. One in what looked like a kitchen. One in a bedroom mirror. No friends in the photos. No outside shots. But I did not overthink it. Some people are just private. We talked for a few days before meeting. She was funny in a dry way. She never used emojis. Her messages were always short but direct. She asked random specific questions though, like what floor I live on. What time I usually get home from work. If I sleep with my window open. I remember thinking that last one was odd, and joked about it. She just replied with a smiley face. We agreed to meet at her place. That was my first mistake. She said she did not like loud bars. Said she had roommates who were out of town and we could just hang there. I hesitated for like 5 minutes, then I told myself I was overthinking again. Her apartment building was older. Brick, 4 stories. No elevator. The hallway smelled like cleaning spray mixed with something stale. Not horrible, just off. She opened the door before I'd even knocked, like she had been standing right behind it. She looked like her pictures. Long dark hair. Pale skin. Oversized sweater. She smiled in a way that was friendly but kind of tight. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet for a city building. No too noise from neighbors. No footsteps upstairs. Just this low hum from the fridge in the kitchen. She offered me water. I said sure. I noticed there were barely any decorations in the living room. Just a couch, a coffee table, and a small lamp in the corner. No pictures on the walls. No clutter. It looked staged. We sat on the couch. There was space between us at first. She asked me about work, about my dog, about my parents. She remembered details from our messages that I had already forgotten. That impressed me at first. Then she asked if she could see my Tinder profile. I laughed a little, asked why. She said she wanted to see what I wrote. Said she liked comparing what people put online versus how they actually are. It did not feel threatening, just curious. So I pulled out my phone. I opened Tinder. It took a second to load. My Wi-Fi bars dropped to 1. I remember that detail clearly. The app felt slower than usual. I tapped my profile. At first glance, everything looked normal. Same pictures, same layout. Then I looked at my bio. It was different. It did not say anything about late night drives or horror movies anymore. It said 4 words. Do not let leave. No punctuation, just that. I stared at it, waiting for my brain to correct it. Like maybe I was misreading it. But it stayed there. Do not let leave. My mouth went dry. I know what I wrote originally. I read it before leaving my apartment. It was normal. She leaned closer to look at my phone. Her expression did not change. She did not look confused. She did not look surprised. She just smiled slightly and said that was interesting. I felt heat rise up my neck. I told her I did not write that. I started laughing like it was some glitch. I even refreshed the app. Still there. Do not let leave. I clicked Edit Profile. The bio section was locked. There was a small gray message under it that I had never seen before. Profile currently under review. Under review for what? I looked at her. She was watching me carefully, not in a panicked way, more like she was waiting for something. I tried to delete the bio text. It would not let me. The cursor would not even appear in the text box. I checked my messages. Normal. I checked my pictures. Same. Just the bio had changed. My phone buzzed. A Tinder notification. Leela has super liked you. That made no sense. We already matched. I showed her the notification. She tilted her head slightly and said maybe it was a glitch. But her eyes did not match her tone. There was something steady there, like she was tracking my reaction. I backed out of my profile and went to the main swipe screen. The first profile that appeared was hers, but it was different. Her bio now said one sentence: "Help him stay." My chest tightened. I looked up at her slowly. She was still sitting right next to me. Same sweater, same calm face. I showed her my screen again. She leaned closer, almost shoulder to shoulder with me now. She said that was weird, but she was smiling wider. I tried to swipe left on her profile. The app froze. I tried to swipe right. Nothing. Then the screen went black for a second and refreshed. New notification at the top. Location sharing enabled for safety. I never turned that on. I went to settings. The toggle was on, grayed out. I tried to turn it off. It would not move. My stomach felt like it was dropping through the floor. She asked if everything was okay. Her voice sounded soft, almost concerned. I nodded automatically. I stood up and said I needed to use the bathroom. She pointed down the hallway. As I walked, I noticed something else. The apartment felt bigger than it looked from the living room. The hallway was longer than it should have been based on the outside of the building. The bathroom door was at the very end. I went inside and locked it. My hands were shaking. I opened Tinder again. My profile picture had changed. It was a photo of me, not one I uploaded. It looked like it was taken from behind, me walking into her building earlier. Same jacket, same posture. Taken from across the street. I zoomed in. It was definitely me. Under the photo, my bio still read "Do not let leave." And under that, a new line had appeared. "He tries to go." My heart was pounding so loud I thought she could hear it through the door. I checked the timestamp on the photo. Uploaded 2 minutes ago. I had been sitting on her couch 2 minutes ago. Who took that photo? I heard a soft knock on the bathroom door. She asked if I was okay. I did not answer. I checked the app one more time. Another notification. Community alert activated. Below it, a list of nearby users. I recognized some of the profile pictures. They were all within a 1-mile radius. Every single one had a small icon next to it. A lock symbol. My profile had the same lock. Then my phone buzzed with a message. From Leela. But she was outside the bathroom. The message said he is trying to leave again. Again. My blood went cold. I unlocked the bathroom door slowly. She was standing right there in the hallway. Closer than I expected. Still smiling. Her phone was in her hand. I glanced down at it without thinking. I saw my profile picture on her screen, with the words "Do not let leave" under it, and a button at the bottom. Confirm containment. She looked up at me. The apartment felt too quiet again. No neighbor sounds, no street noise. Just that low hum. I moved past her quickly and headed toward the front door. She did not grab me. She just followed at a calm pace. My phone buzzed nonstop now. Notification after notification. User approaching exit. Community members notified. Stay calm. I reached the door and grabbed the handle. It would not turn. I pulled harder. Locked from the outside. I turned around slowly. She was standing a few feet away. Not blocking me, just watching. Her phone buzzed too. She glanced at it, then back at me. Almost like she was waiting for confirmation. My phone screen lit up one last time. Containment failed. We're trying. The lights in the apartment flickered once. She stepped closer. I do not remember exactly how I got out. I just remember running down the stairs at some point, my phone still vibrating in my hand. When I got to my car, Tinder was gone from my phone. Deleted. But later that night, I got an email. Subject line: Profile update approved. I did not open it. I should have trusted the weird calm I felt before meeting him. Not nerves. Not excitement. Just this flat, blank calm like my brain was skipping ahead and already tired. I almost canceled that afternoon for no real reason. I even typed out a message saying I was busy and then deleted it. I told myself I was being dramatic. His name was Caleb. We matched on a Thursday night. He was older than the guys I usually swipe on. Not by a lot. Maybe 6 years. His profile looked normal. One picture in a bookstore. One at a rooftop bar. One sitting on a couch with a dog that wasn't his, according to the caption. He messaged first. Not flirty. Just direct. Asked if I preferred coffee or drinks for a first date. I said coffee. He suggested this small place downtown that used to be a warehouse. It's one of those spots with exposed brick and long wooden tables. Always busy in the afternoons, quieter at night. We'd agreed on 8 p.m. When I got there, it was colder than I expected. The street outside was half lit. One of the street lights was flickering like it was about to die. The coffee shop windows were fogged up from inside. I could see silhouettes moving around, but not clear faces. He was already sitting at a table near the back. Not in the corner. Just close enough to the hallway that led to the bathrooms and a side exit. I did not think about that at the time. He stood up when I walked over. He smiled. It reached his eyes, but only slightly, like he had practiced that exact smile in a mirror. The first half hour was fine, almost too fine. He was easy to talk to. He asked about my job, about where I grew up. He remembered small details from our messages, like the fact that I hate olives. He even joked about it when the barista asked if I wanted anything savory. But there was something about how steady he was. He did not fidget. He did not check his phone. He did not glance around the room. His focus was locked on me the entire time. At one point, I noticed his phone was face up on the table. Tinder was open. I could tell from the color scheme. I joked about him still swiping mid-date. He just smiled and said something about clearing notifications. I laughed it off. The shop started to empty out around 9 p.m. A group of college kids left. A couple near the window packed up their laptops. Soon it was just us and one guy in the corner wearing headphones. I checked my phone once to make sure my rideshare app was working. Everything looked normal. Then he picked up his phone. I did not think much of it at first. He tapped a few times. His face did not change. Calm, focused. Then my phone buzzed. A Tinder notification. I looked down. You were no longer matched with this user. My stomach dropped so fast it felt physical. I looked up at him immediately. He was still sitting right there across from me. He had not moved. He leaned forward slightly, lowered his voice, and said, "Now it's off the record." He said it almost gently, like he was explaining something simple. I just stared at him. I did not understand what he meant at first. My brain was stuck on the notification. I opened the app. Our entire conversation was gone. No chat history. No pictures. No profile. Like he never existed on there. I looked back at him and forced a small laugh. I asked why he unmatched me while we were still on the date. He shrugged like it was obvious. He said once you unmatch, there's no paper trail. That was the phrase he used. Paper trail. My chest felt tight. I asked him what he meant. He leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed, and said people lie online all the time. He said it's better to meet without digital records. Without digital records. I glanced around the coffee shop. The barista was wiping down the counter, back turned to us. The guy in the corner was still wearing headphones, staring at his laptop. The front door was still unlocked. I checked it without making it obvious. I told him I did not like that he unmatched me without saying anything. He smiled again, same small controlled smile. He said, "Now we can talk freely." That phrase made my skin crawl. My phone buzzed again. Not a Tinder notification this time. A text. Unknown number. It was just a screenshot. A screenshot of my Tinder profile. Taken that night. With a timestamp from 5 minutes earlier. Under it, a message that said profile archived. I felt my hands go cold. I had not given him my number. I never do that before meeting. He must have seen my expression change because he tilted his head slightly. He asked if something was wrong. I did not show him the text. Instead, I asked him how many dates he had been on recently. He answered too smoothly, said he meets people often but prefers to keep things private. Private. I looked at his phone again. The screen was black now. face down on the table. I noticed something else then. He had placed his chair slightly angled toward the hallway, not directly facing me, like he had a clear view of both me and the exit. I told him I needed to use the bathroom. He nodded slowly. As I stood up, he said something else quietly. He said, once it's off the record, people can be honest about what they want. I did not respond. I walked down the hallway to the bathroom and locked myself inside. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely think. I had opened Tinder again. He was completely gone. I tried searching his name. Nothing. It was like he deleted his account entirely. Then my phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number. This one was a photo. It was me, sitting across from him just now, taken from behind his shoulder. The angle was wrong for it to be from his phone in his hand. It looked like it was taken from somewhere higher up, like from the ceiling. I zoomed in. In the corner of the photo, I could see a small black dome above us. A security camera. I stared at it for a long second. Then another text came through. No record, no proof. My breathing felt uneven. I unlocked the bathroom door slowly and stepped back into the hallway. He was not at the table. For half a second, I thought he left. Then I saw him standing near the side exit, watching the hallway, watching me. He smiled again when I stepped out. He said he was just stretching his legs. I walked back to the table and grabbed my bag. I told him I was not feeling well and needed to go. He did not argue. He did not try to stop me. He just said it was fine. Too fine. As I walked for the front door, my phone buzzed again. Another text. This one was just 3 words. Still not recorded. I pushed the front door open and stepped outside. Cold air hit my face. I walked fast down the street without looking back. My phone kept buzzing in my hand. When I finally checked it under a streetlight, there were multiple texts from the same number. Photos. Not just from tonight. Photos of me from earlier that week. Walking my dog. Leaving my apartment building. Standing in line at a grocery store. All time-stamped. All recent. The last message said deleting match removes chat history. But not everything. I blocked the number immediately. I deleted Tinder that night. 2 days later, I got an email. From Tinder support. It said my account had been reported for suspicious activity and permanently removed. I never reported anything. I tried to log in. My account was gone. Like it was never there. Now when I walk past that coffee shop, I look up at the ceiling cameras first. I do not know what was recorded. I just know that according to the app, we never met. I wish I could say I knew it was going to be weird from the start, but honestly, the beginning was the most normal part. That's what makes it worse. If she had been creepy right away, I would have left. If there were obvious red flags, I would have blocked her. But it was subtle. It built slowly, and by the time I realized what was happening, I was already sitting across from her with no idea what was real anymore. Her name was Tessa. We matched on Hinge, not Tinder this time. Her profile was simple but kind of clever. She answered prompts in a dry, sarcastic way. One of them said the one thing you should know about me is that I hate spoilers. I even joked about that in my first message. We talked for about a week before meeting. She was consistent. Not too fast, not too distant. She would reply at normal hours. She asked about my dog, about where I live, about my job. Nothing extreme. She did ask one thing that stuck out, though. She asked if I ever thought about how predictable people are. I thought she meant astrology or personality types or something. I joked that I was probably basic. She replied that patterns are stronger than people think. I did not think much of it. We agreed to meet at a small art gallery that had a late-night opening. It was downtown, kind of industrial, concrete floors and white walls. Not crowded, but not empty either. I liked the idea because it felt public enough. When I walked in, I saw her near the back wall looking at a painting that was just a gray square. She turned before I even said her name, like she sensed me. She looked exactly like her pictures. Short dark hair, simple black jacket, calm face. The first 20 minutes were normal. We walked around looking at paintings that neither of us understood. She made quiet jokes about how people pretend to see meaning in blank canvases. I laughed. It felt easy. Then we sat on a bench near the middle of the gallery. She pulled out her phone. I thought she was going to show me something about the artist. Instead, she said she wanted to show me something funny. She turned her phone toward me. It was a screenshot of a conversation between us, but not one I recognized. The messages were dated tomorrow. My stomach did a weird drop. At first, I thought it was edited like a joke, but the layout looked exactly like Hinge. Same font, same color bubbles, same profile pictures. In the screenshot, she'd sent me a message after the date saying she had a good time but did not feel a connection. And my reply underneath said, "No worries, I get that a lot." I stared at it. I told her that had not happened. She smiled slightly and said she knew. She said it was just one possible outcome. I felt confused more than scared at first. She swiped to the next screenshot. Another future conversation. This one had her texting me tomorrow morning saying she left her bracelet in my car. And my reply said I could drop it off later. Except I had not driven there. I took a train. She looked at me carefully while I scrolled through the screenshots on her phone. There were at least 10 different versions of future conversations between us. In some, I ghosted her. In some, she ghosted me. In one, I apologized for something I could not even imagine doing. Each screenshot had dates and times that had not happened yet. I asked her how she made those. She said she did not make them. She said she collected them. Collected them from where? She shrugged slightly and said from the pattern. That word again. Pattern. I felt my chest tighten. I asked what she meant. She said she studies behavioral prediction models. That people are not as random as they think. She said based on our messages, my profile, my photos, my location, she could map out likely conversational branches. I'd laughed at first. I told her that sounded like overkill for a dating app. She did not laugh. She said it was more accurate than people expect. Then she looked at me and asked if I wanted to adjust my reaction. I did not understand. She scrolled back to the first screenshot where I replied, "No worries, I get that a lot." She said if I did not like that version of myself, I could choose a different one. My brain felt like it was lagging. I asked her if she was messing with me. She said no. She said the way I respond right now will determine which branch activates. I told her that was not how anything works. She leaned back slightly and watched my face. Then she described what I was about to say. She said I was going to tell her this was weird and maybe a little creepy, but I would try to laugh it off to keep the date from getting awkward. I opened my mouth, and that is almost exactly what I was about to say. I closed it. She smiled. Not big, just small and satisfied. She swiped to another screenshot. In this one, I got defensive. I accused her of hacking my phone. I left early. She said that one had a 42% probability based on my tone shift. I felt heat rush into my face. I asked her how she got those exact sentences. She said she did not need my phone. She said everything I have ever posted publicly, every caption, every comment, every review I have written online feeds into a larger model. I told her that was impossible. She tilted her head slightly and asked if I wanted proof. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A Hinge notification. I looked down. It was a message from her, but she was sitting right in front of me. The message said, "So what do you think of the screenshots?" Timestamp, 1 minute in the future. I stared at it. It disappeared. Then it reappeared with the current time. I looked up at her. She had not touched her phone. At least not that I saw. She said sometimes the app syncs faster than we realize. My hands felt cold. I opened Hinge. Our chat was still normal. Last message was from earlier that afternoon. No weird future messages. I looked back at her phone. The screenshots were still there. She zoomed into one. In that version, I got up from the bench, told her she was insane, and left the gallery. She said that branch led to me blocking her and then reinstalling the app 3 months later out of boredom. She said we would match again in that timeline. My chest felt tight. I asked her why she was showing me this. She said because most people never get to see their branches. She said it is rare to have the chance to adjust in real time. Adjust what? She said my reaction. She said if I leaned into curiosity instead of fear, the path could shift towards something more interesting. Her tone was calm, too calm. I stood up from the bench. She did not stop me. She just watched. My phone buzzed again. Another Hinge notification. This one said new match. I looked down. It was her profile, but with a different photo. In this one, she was standing in front of a mirror I recognized. My bathroom mirror. The photo was dated next week. My heart started pounding. I showed her my screen. She looked at it and then back at me. She said that branch has a lower probability unless you choose it. Choose it how? She shrugged slightly and said by staying. I looked around the gallery. Everything felt too normal. People walking quietly. Soft music playing. I looked back at my phone. The match disappeared. Like it was never there. I looked at her again. She was still sitting on the bench, calm, watching me like I was part of an experiment. She asked again if I wanted to adjust my reaction. I felt trapped between laughing it off and running. My phone buzzed one last time. A screenshot. Sent from an unknown number. It was one of the branches she showed me earlier. The one where I stay. Under it, one sentence. This one locks in. I did not respond. I just walked out of the gallery without looking back. I deleted Hinge that night. 2 days later, I got an email notification. Subject line, welcome back. I never signed back up. I knew the night was going to be weird the second my phone battery dropped from 63% to 41% in like 2 minutes. That sounds dramatic, but I noticed it. I always been a small tech stuff like that. It makes me anxious. And for some reason, sitting across from him in that dim restaurant, watching my battery drain for no reason, felt like the start of something I would regret. His name was Marcus. We matched on Bumble. His profile was polished but not fake looking. Good lighting in every picture. One in a suit at a wedding. One hiking. One holding a coffee like he was in a commercial. His bio was short. Said he worked in data analytics and liked learning random facts about people. That line stuck out to me, but not in a bad way. It sounded harmless. Almost nerdy. We talked for a week before meeting. He was consistent, thoughtful, never pushed for anything too fast. He suggested dinner at a small restaurant near the waterfront. Not fancy, just cozy. Brick walls, low lighting, candle on each table. I had been there once before. It felt safe. When I walked in, he was already seated at a table near the window. The river outside was dark, just reflections of city lights on the water. He stood up, smiled, pulled my chair out slightly. Polite in a practiced way. The first part of dinner was normal. We ordered pasta. Talked about work. He asked a lot of questions. Not rapid fire, but steady. He had this way of nodding slowly, like he was filing everything away. At some point, I told him something I do not usually tell people on first dates. It just slipped out. We were talking about random fears, and I admitted that I hate when people know too much about me too quickly. I said I had a weird childhood where privacy was not really respected, and now I guard small details about my life. He listened carefully, too carefully. He said that made sense. We kept talking. I told him about the small scar on my wrist from when I fell off my bike as a kid. I do not even know why I mentioned it. It was just part of the story. He glanced at my wrist for half a second, and then back at my face. The candle flickered between us. My phone buzzed on the table. I glanced at it automatically. A Bumble notification. Marcus updated his profile. I frowned. Why would he update his profile while sitting across from me? I opened the app. His profile popped up at the top of my messages. I tapped it. His bio had changed. Before, it said he liked learning random facts about people. Now it said currently on a date with someone who has a small scar on her left wrist from falling off a bike at age 9 and values privacy because of childhood boundaries being ignored. My blood felt like it drained out of my body. I stared at the screen, waiting for it to correct itself. It did not. The exact detail I had just told him privately was now in his public bio. Worded almost exactly how I said it. I looked up at him slowly. He was watching my face. Not confused. Not embarrassed. Just watching. I asked him if he updated his profile. He said he tweaks it sometimes to keep it fresh. Fresh. I showed him my screen. He leaned forward slightly, looked at it, then leaned back again. He said that was interesting. Interesting. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear the background music anymore. I refreshed the page. The bio changed again. Now it said currently on a date with someone who lives in a third-floor apartment with a blue door and keeps her dog's leash hanging on the kitchen hook by the fridge. I stopped breathing for a second. I never told him that. Not tonight. Not in the messages. But it was true. I live on the third floor. My door is blue. The leash does hang by the fridge. I felt my hands start shaking. I looked at him again. He had not touched his phone. At least I did not see him touch it. It was face down on the table. I asked him how he knew that. He tilted his head slightly and asked how he would not know that. That answer made no sense. I refreshed his profile again. Now it said currently on a date with someone whose phone battery is at 37% and dropping. I looked at my battery. 37%. Exactly. I felt like the room got smaller. The candlelight felt too dim, the walls too close. I picked up my phone and checked my settings. No screen sharing. No weird apps open. I looked around the restaurant. Other couples talking quietly. A waiter walking past with plates. Everything looked normal. But his profile kept changing. Each time I refreshed, a new line appeared. She keeps checking the door. She is considering leaving. Her heart rate is elevated. I could feel my pulse in my neck. I asked him if this was some kind of joke. He said he works with live data streams. The apps update constantly. He said maybe Bumble is testing new features. Testing new features by broadcasting private details. I refreshed again. The bio now included my full first and last name. I never put my last name on Bumble. I felt cold. I asked him how he got my last name. He did not answer directly. He said people share more than they think. My phone buzzed again. Another notification. Marcus added a new photo. I opened his profile again. The new photo was of the restaurant, taken from behind me. I zoomed in. It was my back, my hair, the table, the candle. Taken seconds ago. I looked up sharply. He was sitting perfectly still. His phone was still face down. I looked around the restaurant again. No one near us holding a phone pointed our way. I felt like I was underwater. I stood up from the table. He did not try to stop me. He just watched. I told him I needed air. I walked toward the bathroom hallway. My phone buzzed again. His bio updated. She is walking toward the hallway. I stopped mid-step. I turned around slowly. He was still at the table. Calm. Watching. I opened his profile again. It now said she is realizing this is not random. My chest felt tight. I rushed to the bathroom and locked myself inside. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I opened Bumble again. His profile was still active. Still updating. Now it said she is alone in the bathroom trying to figure out how this is happening. I felt like I was going to be sick. I checked my phone for any remote access apps. Nothing. I turned off Wi-Fi. The profile still updated. I turned off Bluetooth. Still updated. My phone buzzed again. A direct message from him inside Bumble. It said you do not like when people know too much too quickly. I looked at the timestamp. Sent just now. I unlocked the bathroom door slowly. He was not at the table anymore. For a split second, I thought he left. Then I saw him standing near the exit. Hands in his pockets. Watching the hallway. I walked toward him carefully. My phone buzzed again. His bio updated one last time. She's about to run. I did. I pushed past him and out the door and into the cold night air. I did not look back. My phone kept buzzing as I ran down the sidewalk. When I finally stopped and checked, his profile was gone. Completely gone. Like it never existed. The next morning, I read a notification from Bumble support. It said my account had been suspended for violating community guidelines related to sharing private information. I never shared anything. But under the email was a screenshot of his profile with my details and my name listed as the editor. I have this rule now where I always tell at least one person where I am going on a first date. I did not used to. I used to think that was paranoid. But after this night, I will never skip it again. The only reason I am even here telling this is because I did send that text before I left. Her name was Dana. We matched on Tinder on a random Monday night when I could not sleep. Her profile was low-key. 2 pictures. One in a bookstore, one outside somewhere that looked like a hiking trail. Her bio just said, I like quiet places and long conversations. No emojis. No big personality stuff. We talked for about 5 days before meeting. She was thoughtful in a quiet way. She asked questions that were a little deeper than usual. Not just what do you do, but what do you regret? What do you think about when you cannot sleep? It felt intense, but not in a bad way. More like she was actually trying to know me. She suggested we go somewhere outside the city. Said she hated crowded spots. There was this small lakeside park about 20 minutes away with a walking path and a few benches near the water. I had been there once during the day. At night, it is darker, but not completely empty. Sometimes couples sit out there. Before I left my apartment, I texted my sister and told her I was meeting someone at the lake and I would be home by 11. I sent her a screenshot of Dana's profile, too. She replied with a thumbs up and a joke about not getting kidnapped. I rolled my eyes at that. It did not feel like that kind of situation. When I got to the parking lot was almost empty. One other car near the entrance. The air was cool. The lake was completely black except for a faint reflection of the moon. I saw her sitting on one of the benches near the water. She stood up when I walked over. She looked like her pictures. Brown hair tied back. Gray hoodie. Calm expression. We started walking along the path. Gravel crunching under our shoes. The only sound besides that was the water gently moving against the shore. It felt peaceful at first. She asked about my week, about work, about my dog. It felt normal. I started to relax a little. Then she asked something that felt small but stuck with me. She asked what time I told people I would be home. The question came out of nowhere. We had just been talking about favorite movies. I laughed and said around 11. She stopped walking for a second. She looked at me carefully and asked who was expecting me. I said my sister knew I was out. Her face changed slightly. Not angry. Not scared. Just disappointed. She frowned. It was subtle, but I saw it. She asked if I always tell someone. I said usually yeah, just in case. She nodded slowly and started walking again. The vibe shifted right there. Before that question, everything felt easy. After, it felt like she was calculating something. We reached a bench near the edge of the lake and sat down. The water was so dark it looked solid, like a black sheet. She asked if I trusted people easily. I said it depends. She asked if I trusted her. I said we just met. She smiled slightly and said I was fair. There was a long pause. Then she asked if my sister was expecting me exactly at 11 or just generally. I felt a small tension in my chest. I said I told her around 11. She asked if I would text her if I was running late. I said probably. She stared out at the water. Then she said that complicates things. That sentence made my stomach drop. I asked what complicates things. She did not answer directly. She just asked what I would do if my phone died. I checked my battery automatically. 68%. I said I would probably borrow a charger from somewhere. She nodded slowly again. The path behind us was empty now. I realized I had not seen the other car's owner in the entire time. She asked if my sister had my live location. I said no. She seemed relieved at that. That scared me more than if she had looked worried. I told her she was asking kind of specific questions. She said she likes to understand variables. Variables. Like this was some kind of equation. I tried to laugh it off. Told her she sounded like she was planning something. She looked at me and said she likes when plans go smoothly. There was something in her tone that felt too flat. I suddenly felt very aware of how dark it was. No street lights near the water, just faint light from the parking lot in the distance. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was my sister texting asking if everything was good. I did not answer right away. Dana's eyes flicked down toward my pocket when it buzzed. She asked who that was. I said my sister checking in. Her jaw tightened slightly. She asked how I was going to respond. I said probably in a minute. She leaned back on the bench and stared at the lake again. Then she said it is harder when someone is expecting you. Harder for what? I asked her what she meant. She finally looked directly at me. She said most people do not tell anyone where they are going. She said most people assume nothing bad will happen. I felt my heart rate pick up. I asked why she cared so much about whether someone was expecting me. She did not answer that. Instead, she asked what I would do if I dropped my phone in the water. I glanced at the lake again. It looked endless. I said I would be annoyed and probably leave. She asked how I would get home without directions. I said I know the way. She asked if my sister would come looking for me if I did not answer. I said yeah, eventually. She frowned again. This time more clearly. Like I had ruined something. There was a long silence after that. The air felt heavier. I finally pulled out my phone and texted my sister that I was fine. Dana watched me type. She asked if I could send one more message. I asked what. She said tell her you might stay out later than planned. I felt something cold slide through my chest. I said I was probably leaving soon. She looked at me for a long second. Then she stood up. She said she needed to show me something by the water. I hesitated. But I stood up too. We walked closer to the edge of the lake where the gravel turned to dirt. The ground felt softer there. She pointed toward a darker area near some trees. She said it is quieter over there. I did not move. I asked why she seemed upset that someone was expecting me. She turned to face me fully. Her expression was not angry. It was frustrated. She said she prefers when no one is waiting. No one checking. No one counting bets. My heart was pounding now. I took a small step back. She noticed. She asked if I was scared. I said I just thought it was weird she cared so much. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she said this would have been easier if no one was expecting you. Easier for what? She did not answer. My phone buzzed again. Another text from my sister asking if I was still at the lake. Dana's eyes flicked to my pocket again. Then she sighed. Actually sighed. Like something had not gone according to plan. She stepped back from the water and said maybe we should head back. Her tone was flat again. We walked back toward the parking lot in silence. The other car was gone now. When we reached our cars, she did not try to hug me or say anything normal. She just said she hoped to get home safe. The way she said it felt layered. I got in my car and locked the doors immediately. As I drove away, I checked my mirrors. Her car did not follow. But when I got home, my sister was waiting outside my building. She said she got a bad feeling when I did not answer right away. I did not tell her everything. Just that the date was weird. Later that night, I read a notification from Tinder. Dana unmatched you. Her profile disappeared. The next day, I drove past the lake during daylight. Near the trees by the water, I noticed the ground looked disturbed, like it had been dug up recently. The first time he corrected me, I honestly thought he was joking. Like one of those guys who pretends to know a city better than you, even if you have lived there your whole life. I'd even laughed. That laugh is what I keep thinking about now. How casual it sounded. How normal I thought the night was. His name was Ellie. We matched on Hinge. His profile was simple. Clean photos. One in front of a mural I recognized downtown. One sitting in a cafe. He looked friendly. Not overly confident. Not trying too hard. His prompts were kind of bland. Said he liked long walks and old movies. Nothing extreme. We talked for 2 weeks before meeting. He was consistent. Good morning texts. Asked about my day. Sent pictures of his dog. I even told my roommate he seemed safe. That word makes me feel stupid now. We met at a small taco place near campus. It was loud but cozy. Neon lights, music playing low in the background. The kind of place where first dates blend into all the other tables. Dinner was fine. Honestly fine. He asked normal questions. Told normal stories. Laughed at the right times. I did not feel any red flags. Maybe a little intense eye contact. Some people are just like that. After we paid, I said I would just walk home since I only live about 10 minutes away. He immediately said he would walk me. I told him he did not have to. He insisted. Not in an aggressive way, just firm. Said it was late, and he would feel better knowing I got home safe. It was around 10:30 p.m. The streets were not empty, but quieter than earlier. I figured it was not a big deal. It felt polite. We stepped out into the cool air. The streetlights cast long shadows on the sidewalk. I started walking toward the usual route I take. There are 2 ways to get back to my building. One is faster but darker. The other is slightly longer, but has more lights and passes by a 24-hour pharmacy. I always take the brighter one at night. Halfway down the first block, I turned left toward the brighter street. He slowed down. Then he said that's not the way you go home. His tone was casual, like he was pointing out I dropped something. I laughed and said it was one of 2 ways. He shook his head slightly and said no, you usually go straight and cut through the smaller street by the closed bakery. My stomach tightened a little. I asked how he knew that. He said he noticed on my stories. I barely post stories. And I definitely have not posted my exact route home. I told him I sometimes switch it up. He smiled, but it looked forced. He said the other way is faster. I said I prefer this one at night. He paused for a second before following me. We kept walking. I tried to brush it off. Maybe he walked around here before. Maybe he guessed. But then he started pointing out details. He mentioned the red door on the corner building that is chipped paint. He mentioned the cat that sometimes sits in the second floor window across from the laundromat. Those are things you only notice if you walk here often. I asked him if he used to live nearby. He said no. That answer sat heavy in my chest. We reached the pharmacy corner. Bright white lights spilling onto the sidewalk. I felt slightly better being under that light. Then he asked which floor I was on again. I told him 3rd. He nodded like he was confirming something. We crossed the street. Instead of turning right toward my building, I decided to test something. I turned left instead, toward a different block entirely. It was not the way home at all. He stopped walking. Then he said, "You do not go this way." Not a question. A statement. I forced a laugh again and said I felt like walking a little longer. He did not laugh. He stepped closer to me and lowered his voice slightly and said, "Your building is the other direction." The way he said "your building" made my skin crawl. I asked how he knew which building was mine. He hesitated for half a second. Then he said I told him earlier. I had not. I remember clearly because I never give exact building details on first dates. I said I did not think I told him. He smiled again, but it did not reach his eyes. He said maybe he was just good with directions. We stood there awkwardly for a second. Then I said I was going to head home alone from here. He frowned slightly and said he already walked this far. I said I appreciated it, but I was good. He looked past me down the street. Then he said, "Your entrance is around the corner from here anyway." My chest felt tight. He should not know that. I asked him how he knew that. He shrugged and said it is obvious based on the layout. It was not obvious. My building is tucked behind another one. You cannot see the entrance from the main road. I felt I was standing in the middle of the stage, and he knew all my lines before I said them. I took out my phone and pretended to check a message. He watched my screen. I noticed that. He was not looking at my face. He was looking at my phone. I decided to walk toward a small convenience store that was still open. Bright lights, camera above the door. He followed me without asking. Inside, I pretended to browse snacks. He stood near the entrance, watching. Not browsing. Just watching. I texted my roommate quickly that I was a block away and asked her to come outside. She replied with a confused question mark. I told her just do it. When I looked up, he was closer than before. He asked if everything was okay. I said yeah, just grabbing something. He looked toward the window like he was checking the street. Then he said again that we should head the other way. The way you always go. The way I always go. I had never told him that route. Not in messages. Not tonight. Unless. I remembered something. A week ago, I posted a picture of my dog on a walk. The background showed part of the closed bakery sign. Just the edge of it. Was that enough? My brain was racing. We stepped outside the store. My roommate was not there yet. He said we are close now. I said I changed my mind about him walking me. His face changed slightly. Not angry. More like disappointed. He said he just wanted to make sure I got home safe. I said I appreciated it, but I was good. He stood there for a second. Then he said you turn right at the end of this block, and then your entrance is halfway down on the left. Exactly correct. My heart felt like it was slamming into my ribs. I asked how he knew that. He did not answer. He just smiled and said good night. Then he walked away. Not in the direction of the taco place. In the direction of my building. I froze. For a second, I did not move. Then I walked fast toward my actual building, which was the opposite direction from where he went. I lied about my route earlier. I do not live near the bakery. I live near the park 3 blocks over. When I turned the corner toward my real building, my roommate was standing outside looking annoyed and confused. I grabbed her arm and pulled her inside quickly. I did not explain much. Just that the date was weird. Later that night, I checked Hinge. He unmatched me. His profile was gone. The next morning, I walked past the bakery street on my way to work. On the closed bakery door, someone had scratched something into the metal with a key. It was not big. Just small letters. Wrong turn. I did not think living with a roommate would ever save me from anything. If anything, I used to see it as kind of embarrassing, like I was behind in life. But now every time I hear him in the kitchen at 2 a.m. making noise, I feel relieved. Because if I had been living alone that night, I do not think I would have slept at all. And I am not sure she would have left it alone. Her name was Mira. We matched on a newer app, one of those ones that claims it uses deeper compatibility metrics. Her profile looked almost too clean. Professional photos. Neutral backgrounds. Simple outfits. Her bio said she valued privacy and quiet homes. That line seemed random, but I did not think about it much at the time. We talked for about 10 days before meeting. She was different from most matches. She did not ask about hobbies much. She asked about routine. What time I wake up. What time I get home from work. Whether I cook or order food. She asked if I prefer silence at night or if I leave a TV on. It felt slightly intrusive, but also kind of intimate. Like she wanted to know the real stuff. We agreed to meet at a wine bar near downtown. Not a loud place. Dim lights. Brick walls. Soft music. It felt low-key. Comfortable. When I walked in, she was already at a small table near the back. She stood up when she saw me. She looked exactly like her pictures. Long dark hair. Pale skin. Calm eyes. The first half hour was normal. We talked about work. About the city. She spoke in a steady tone, almost monotone but not boring. Just controlled. Then she asked where I live. I told her the neighborhood. She nodded and asked if I was in an apartment or a house. I said apartment. She asked if I liked it quiet. I said yeah, mostly. Then she asked if I live alone. I said no, I have a roommate. She paused. It was small, but I saw it. Her expression shifted for just a second, like disappointment. She recovered quickly and asked how long I had been living with him. I told her about 2 years. She leaned back slightly and took a sip of her drink. Then she said that was unusual. I asked what was unusual. She said the app does not usually match her with men who live with other people. I laughed because I thought she was joking. She did not laugh. She said it like it was a known rule. I asked what she meant. She said every match she has ever had lived alone. Every single one. I shrugged and said maybe that is just coincidence. She shook her head slowly. She said she has tested it. She said she used to list in her profile that she valued independent living. She removed it once to see what would happen. She said the app still only showed her profiles of men who live alone. I told her that sounded impossible. She said it is an algorithm. Algorithms filter for patterns. I felt a weird chill run through me. I asked how she knew they lived alone. She said she always asks early on. Like she asked me. I tried to keep the tone light. Told her maybe the app just assumes older users live alone. She said she sets her age range wide. She said it is consistent. Then she looked at me again and said it is strange that it matched us. Strange. I asked if it was a problem. She hesitated for half a second and said it complicates things. That phrase again. Complicates things. I asked how. She said it is harder to have privacy with other people in the house. There was something in the way she said house. Like she was picturing mine. I told her my roommate keeps to himself, that he works late shifts. Her eyes sharpened slightly. She asked what time he usually gets home. I told her around midnight most nights. She nodded slowly. Then she asked if he ever leaves town. I laughed and asked if she was planning to rob me. She smiled faintly but did not deny it outright. She said she prefers spaces without witnesses. The way she said it was so calm that it did not even sound threatening at first. I asked what she meant. She said she likes when it is just her and the person she is with. No interruptions, no unexpected variables. Variables again. I felt that same tightness in my chest. I told her I value privacy too, but that living alone is expensive. She said money is not the point. She said isolation is. The word isolation just sat there between us. The bar around us felt quieter than before. I glanced around and noticed most tables had cleared out. Just two other couples near the front. She leaned forward slightly and asked if my roommate ever has friends over. I said sometimes, yeah. She asked if he locks his door at night. I said I guess. I asked why she cared so much about my roommate. She said she does not like surprises. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. She said when people live alone, you can predict the silence. You can predict the silence. I asked if she had ever dated someone who lived alone. She said yes. Multiple times. I asked how that went. She shrugged slightly and said they were quiet. Past tense. I asked what happened with them. She said it did not work out. The way she said it felt incomplete. Like a sentence missing the important part. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from my roommate asking if I could grab milk on the way home. I pulled it out to check. She watched my screen. I replied quickly. She asked if that was him. I said yeah. She asked if he knew I was on a date. I said yeah, I told him. She frowned again. Subtle but there. She said she prefers when no one is aware. Aware of what? She did not answer. Instead, she asked if my building has cameras. I felt my pulse pick up. I said I think so. She nodded slowly. Then she said that probably explains it. Explains what? She said maybe the app thought I lived alone. Maybe it misread my data. I asked what data. She shrugged. Said apps know more than we think. The air felt heavy. I suddenly felt very aware of the fact that she knew my neighborhood, my living situation, my roommate's schedule. I asked her where she lived. She smiled faintly and said alone. Of course. I asked what floor. She said top. I asked if she ever feels unsafe living alone. She looked at me steadily and said not usually. Not usually. We finished our drinks in near silence after that. When the bill came, she insisted on splitting it exactly. No rounding up. Precise. Outside, the street was almost empty. She asked if I was walking home. I said I would grab a ride. She asked why. I said it was easier. She looked disappointed again. Then she said maybe the app made a mistake with us. I asked what that meant. She said it is designed to bring her to certain environments. Certain environments. I felt a knot form in my stomach. I told her I did not understand what she was implying. She just smiled softly and said she prefers men who live alone. Then she stepped back and said goodnight. I got into my ride and locked the door immediately. On the way home, I opened the app. Her profile was gone. Unmatched. When I got to my apartment, my roommate was in the kitchen. The milk I bought sat on the counter. He joked about how long my date lasted. I laughed it off. Later that night, I checked the app again. A notification popped up. New match available. I opened it. It was her. But her bio had changed. It now said only shown to users who live alone. I stared at it, then refreshed. Her profile disappeared again. I did not sleep much that night. Around 3 a.m., I heard someone try my apartment door handle. Just once. Slowly. I thought it was just my phone overheating at first. That is how normal it felt in the beginning. Just a glitch. Just bad signal. If it had jumped straight to something insane, I would have left right away. But it built slowly, like my phone was testing how much I would ignore. Her name was Alina. We matched on Tinder 3 days before the date. Her profile was low effort but in a confident way. 2 pictures, one in a parking garage, one in a dim bedroom mirror. Her bio said she liked rooftop views and quiet nights. That was it. We did not talk long before meeting, just enough to confirm we were not completely incompatible. She suggested this rooftop lounge on top of a hotel downtown. I had never been there. She said it was quiet on weeknights. When I got there, the elevator ride alone felt strange. The hotel lobby was bright and polished, but the elevator lighting was dim and kind of flickery. I brushed it off. The rooftop itself was almost empty. A few small tables. Glass railing around the edge. The city lights spread out below like a grid of yellow dots. It was windy up there. Cold. She was already at a table near the railing. She looked like her pictures. Dark hair. Sharp features. Calm expression. She stood when I approached and smiled in a way that was polite but unreadable. The first 30 minutes were fine. We talked about work, music, random stuff. She asked good questions. She had the steady way of listening, like she was paying attention to every word. At some point I mentioned I live alone. I do not know why I said it. It just came up naturally while talking about rent. She nodded slowly when I said it, almost like she was checking something off in her head. The drinks were expensive. I remember seeing $18 on the menu and thinking that was too much for something I would finish in 5 minutes, but I stayed. Around 9:45 p.m., my phone buzzed on the table. I glanced down. A Tinder notification. I thought maybe someone else matched me or something random. I opened the app without thinking. Instead of the normal home screen, the entire display was black except for a white circle in the middle. Inside the circle was a countdown timer. 59:48. Under it, in small white letters, was my name. Not my username. My full first name. I froze. I blinked and refreshed the app. It stayed there. The timer ticking down in real time. 59:44. 59:43. My name under it. I looked up at her slowly. She was watching my face. Not my phone. My face. I tried to act normal. I said something about my app glitching. She tilted her head slightly and asked what it was doing. I turned the screen toward her. Her expression did not change. She looked at it calmly. Then she said maybe it is counting down your date. My heart skipped. I laughed awkwardly and said that would be creepy. She shrugged and said apps test features all the time. But her eyes were steady. Too steady. I closed the app completely. Swiped it away. Opened it again. The timer was still there. Now at 58:59. I checked my Wi-Fi. Full bars. I switched to cellular. Still there. I logged out. The screen went blank for a second. Then it reloaded to the same black background. Same circle. Same countdown. With my name. My chest felt tight. I told her this was weird. She asked how much time was left. I said about 58 minutes. She nodded slowly. Then she asked what happens when it hits 0. I said I have no idea. She leaned back in her chair and took a slow sip of her drink. Then she said maybe we should find out. That sentence hit me wrong. I locked my phone and put it face down. We kept talking, but my focus was gone. Every few minutes I checked the timer. 57:12. 55:33. It was ticking down perfectly. She asked more specific questions now. What floor I live on. If my building has cameras. If anyone knows I am here tonight. I told her a friend knew. She smiled faintly and asked if they knew exactly where. I said not exactly. She nodded again. The wind picked up slightly. The rooftop felt colder. I checked the timer again. 49:58. My hands were starting to feel shaky. I tried deleting Tinder completely. I held the app icon down. Pressed delete. It disappeared from my home screen. I felt a small rush of relief. Then my phone buzzed. I looked down. A new notification. From Tinder. Even though I had just deleted it. I opened it. The timer was back. 48:21. Still counting down. My name still under it. I looked up at her again. She asked how much time now. I asked her how she knew there was a timer. She said because you keep looking like there is one. That answer felt wrong. I asked if she had ever seen anything like this before. She paused slightly. Then she said no. But the pause was noticeable. I checked the timer again. 42:07. I told her I might head out early. She asked why. I said this app thing was creeping me out. She leaned forward slightly and asked what if leaving resets it. My stomach dropped. I asked what she meant. She said maybe it is location-based. Maybe it is tied to this place. I looked around the rooftop. There were only 2 other couples now. The bartender inside behind the glass doors. Everything looked normal, but the timer kept ticking. 39:55. She asked if my name was spelled correctly on it. I felt a jolt in my chest. I looked down. It was exactly correct. Even though my Tinder name only shows my first initial. This had my full first name. Spelled the way only official documents have it. I asked her how she thought the app would know my full name. She shrugged. Said maybe it pulls from other accounts. I asked what other accounts. She did not answer. The timer hit 30 o'clock. Exactly 30 minutes left. The circle around it turned from white to red. I felt like my heart stopped for a second. She noticed. She asked what changed. I told her the circle turned red. She nodded slowly. Then she said halfway point. Halfway to what? She did not respond. I stood up. Said I was leaving. She stayed seated. She said if you leave now, you will not know what it was counting down to. I said I did not care. I walked toward the elevator doors. My phone buzzed again. I looked down while walking. The timer jumped. Instead of 29:42, it now read 10 o'clock. 10 minutes. My heart started pounding. I stopped walking. I turned back toward her. She was still sitting there calmly, watching. I walked back to the table. I do not even know why. Maybe because I felt like I needed to see what happened. The timer ticked down. 9:12. 8:59. The wind was louder now. The city lights looked further away somehow. She asked if anyone was expecting me home. I said not exactly. She nodded again, like she was confirming something. 5 o'clock. The circle was fully red now. My hands felt numb. I looked around the rooftop. The other couples were gone. The bartender was gone. The glass doors to the inside were locked. I had not heard anyone leave. 2:30. I felt trapped. I grabbed my phone tighter. 1 o'clock. She stood up slowly. Stepped closer to me. Not touching. Just close. The timer hit 0:10. 0:09. I felt like I could not breathe. 0:03. 0:02. 0:01. The screen went black. Then a new message appeared. Session complete. I looked up at her. She was smiling softly. Then she said, "You lasted longer than most." The elevator doors behind me opened with a ding. I did not wait for anything else. I stepped inside and hit the lobby button repeatedly. When I reached the ground floor, I ran outside without looking back. When I checked my phone again, Tinder was gone. No app. No history. Nothing. The next morning, I read a notification in my email. Subject line: "Thank you for participating." I did not even want to match with her. That is the part that keeps bothering me. I almost swiped left. Her profile felt too polished, too curated, like it was built in a lab. Perfect lighting in every photo. Same neutral background. Same half smile. Her bio just said looking for something stable enough to stop the cycle. I did not know what that meant, but it sounded dramatic in a way that pulled me in. Her name was Corinne. We matched on a Sunday night. She messaged first, which already made her stand out. Most of my matches either waited or never said anything. She opened with a question about whether I believed compatibility could be measured or if it had to be felt. That was not a normal opener. It felt like an interview question. I told her it was probably both. She replied almost instantly and said the app thinks so too. I thought she was joking. We talked for a week. She was consistent but not clingy. She would reference small things I said days earlier. She asked about my routines, what time I wake up, how often I go out, whether I cook or order food. It felt like she was mapping my life in bullet points. At some point, she asked if I had been on many dates from the app. I said a few. She asked if I ever felt like I was being compared to someone else. That question sat weird with me. I asked what she meant. She said sometimes she feels like the app is lining people up next to each other, waiting to see which one performs best. Performs. I left it off and said that it is kind of how dating works. She said not like this. We agreed to meet at a quiet tea house on the edge of town. It was not trendy. No loud music, just soft lighting, small wooden tables, and shelves full of tea jars. It smelled like herbs and something sweet. When I walked in, she was already seated near the back, her hands folded neatly on the table. She looked exactly like her pictures. Calm, controlled, watching the door like she knew the second I stepped in. The first half hour felt normal. We talked about work, about school, about random stuff like how weird it is that everyone shares their location now without thinking. Then she leaned forward slightly and asked if I ever noticed how often the app suggests new people right after a date. I'd said that happens sometimes. She nodded and said it happens to her every time. She said no matter how well a date goes, the next day the app floods her with new profiles. She called them replacements. I told her that is just how the algorithm keeps people engaged. She stared at me for a long second and said the algorithm does not like stability. That line made my chest feel tight. I asked what she meant. She said every time she starts talking to someone consistently, the app suddenly starts suggesting even more matches, like it is testing alternatives. I shrugged and said that is probably just how it works. She shook her head slowly. She said she tested. She said she went on 5 dates last month, with 5 different men. Each time, the app would suggest someone new within hours. She said she tried deleting her profile after the 3rd date. The app recreated it automatically. That made me laugh because it sounded impossible. She did not laugh. She said she received a welcome back email without signing up again. My stomach dropped slightly. That felt too close to something I had heard before. I asked if she contacted support. She said they responded with a generic message about engagement metrics. Engagement metrics. The tea house felt quieter than before. I noticed the other customers had left. I did not see them leave. She took a slow sip of her tea and then said she thinks the app is optimizing. Optimizing what? She said outcomes. I asked what kind of outcomes. She said sustainable pairing. I laughed again, but it felt forced. She said every time she thinks something is getting serious, something interrupts it. A new match. A glitch. A sudden unmatch. She said the app keeps suggesting replacements. Then she looked at me in a way that felt too focused. She said, but tonight feels different. I asked how. She said, because I have been cooperative. Cooperative. That word made my stomach drop. I asked what she meant by that. She said I answered her questions directly. I did not push back much. I met her where she suggested. She said most of the others resisted. Resisted what? She did not answer. Instead, she pulled out her phone. She showed me her app screen. It looked normal at first. Her messages. Our chat at the top. Then she scrolled down. Under the chat list was a section I had never seen before. Suggested replacements. There were profile pictures under it. Blurry, like they were loading. I asked if that was a new feature. She said it only appears after a certain threshold. I asked what threshold. She said failed matches. My heart started pounding. She tapped one of the blurry profiles. It expanded slightly, but no name showed. Just a placeholder. She said that was the last one. The last replacement. I asked what she was talking about. She looked at me steadily and said she thinks the app runs parallel conversations. Testing compatibility live. Comparing reactions. She said the algorithm measures who aligns best. I told her that sounded paranoid. She did not react to that word. She just nodded slowly and said you have been consistent. I felt my hands start to sweat. I asked what happens if I am not consistent. She said then the algorithm shifts to someone else. Another replacement. The tea house lights flickered slightly. It could have been nothing. She stared down at her phone again. Then she smiled faintly. She said thank you for cooperating. My chest tightened. I asked cooperating with what? She said the algorithm will finally stop suggesting replacements. I did not understand. She turned her phone toward me again. The suggested replacements section was gone. Completely gone. Instead, there was a small line of text under our chat. Pairing stabilized. I felt like I could not breathe for a second. I asked what that meant. She said it means the testing phase is over. Testing phase. I looked around the tea house. The counter was empty. No barista. No one near the door. I asked if she was messing with me. She shook her head slowly. She said she has been through this cycle before. Every time she does not cooperate, the app introduces someone new. Every time she leaves early, she gets unmatched. Every time she blocks someone, her profile reappears. She said tonight is the first time the replacement stopped loading. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. A notification from the app. Compatibility locked. I stared at it. I did not tap it. I looked up at her. She was smiling softly. Not excited. Just relieved. She said it should be easier now. I asked easier how. She said no more interruptions. No more sudden new matches. Just us. My phone buzzed again. Another notification. Profile editing disabled during stabilization. My hands felt numb. I opened the app slowly. My swipe screen was gone. Instead, it only showed her profile. No option to browse. No option to search. Just her. Under her picture was a message. Replacements suspended. I felt trapped in a way that did not make sense logically. I tried logging out. The button was grayed out. She watched me carefully. She said most people fight it. She said the algorithm does not like resistance. I asked what happens if I delete the app. She tilted her head slightly and said it usually reinstalls. Usually. The room felt smaller. I stood up from the table. She did not stop me. She just said thank you again. For cooperating. I walked toward the door. It opened easily. Outside, the street was empty. When I checked my phone again, the app was still open. Still only her profile. Under it, a new line appeared. Stability requires proximity. I did not go back inside. I went straight home. That night, I tried deleting the app 3 times. Each time, it reappeared. With her profile. And no replacements. I knew something was wrong before I even opened the message. It was the way my phone buzzed, not the normal quick vibration from a text. It was longer, slower, like it wanted me to look at it right away. And the worst part is, I was already looking at him when it happened. His name was Ryan. We matched on Bumble a few days earlier. He seemed normal, almost boring, which I actually liked. His profile had hiking pictures, one with a golden retriever, one at a baseball game. His bio said he liked routine and hated drama. I remember thinking that sounded stable. We talked for about a week before meeting. He was consistent. He texted good morning most days. He asked about my classes. He told me about his job in finance. Nothing weird. Nothing that stood out. We agreed to meet at a small diner outside the city. It was one of those old school places with red booths and checkered floors. Open late. Bright lights. I figured that was safe enough. When I got there, he was already seated in a booth near the window. He stood up when I approached, smiled, pulled the booth seat out slightly like he was trying to be polite. The first half hour felt fine. We ordered milkshakes, talked about random stuff like how weird dating apps are. He joked about bad first dates he had in the past. I laughed. It felt easy. But there was something about the way he watched me. Not creepy at first, just focused, like he was studying my reactions. At some point I mentioned that I always tell my sister where I am when I go on dates. I said it casually, like it was a funny habit. He nodded but did not comment much. Then my phone buzzed on the table. I glanced down automatically. It was a Bumble notification. From him. That made no sense. He was sitting right across from me. I opened it. The message read, "Don't make this harder." I felt like the air left my lungs. I looked up at him immediately. He was staring at me. Not smiling. Not confused. Just watching. I felt my face go hot. I asked him if he just sent me something. He looked down at his phone slowly, then back at me. He said he did not send anything. I turned my phone toward him and showed the message. The timestamp was from 10 seconds ago. He frowned slightly like he was surprised. He picked up his phone and opened the app. He turned it toward me. Our chat looked normal on his screen. No new message. My hands started to shake. I refreshed the chat. The message was still there. "Don't make this harder." I tried to laugh it off. Said maybe the app glitched. He leaned back in the booth and crossed his arms loosely. He said that would be weird timing. We sat there in silence for a second. I checked the message again. There was a small detail under it I had not noticed at first. Sent from nearby device. My chest tightened. I asked him what that meant. He shrugged and said maybe it is a new feature. But he was not smiling. I felt like something shifted in the booth, like the space between us got smaller. I locked my phone and slid into my bag. We tried to continue talking. He asked about my classes again. I answered automatically, but my brain was not fully there. After a few minutes, my phone buzzed again. I did not want to look, but I did. Another Bumble notification. Same chat. I opened it slowly. New message. "You're overthinking it." I felt my throat go dry. I had not said that out loud. I had been thinking it. He was watching my face again. I asked if he sent another one. He shook his head calmly. He said maybe someone hacked your phone. I felt panic creeping up my spine. I told him I was going to the bathroom. He nodded and said, "Take your time." That line hit me wrong. I walked quickly to the back of the diner and locked myself in the bathroom stall. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I opened Bumble again. The chat was open. Under the last message was a typing indicator. 3 dots. I stared at it. It kept blinking. Then another message appeared. "Don't make me repeat myself." I felt dizzy. I checked his location on the app. It said active now. I listened closely. Through the bathroom door, I could hear faint diner noise, plates clinking, low conversation. I opened our chat settings. It showed only 2 devices connected to the conversation. Mine and his. I took a deep breath and tried calling my sister. The call did not go through. No signal. I looked at my bars. Full. But the call would not connect. My phone buzzed again. You're making this harder. I felt tears start to form in my eyes out of pure confusion and fear. I typed back, "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. "You know who." I felt like I could not breathe. I unlocked the stall and walked slowly back toward the main area. He was still sitting in the booth, hands on the table, looking calm. He looked up when he saw me. I slid back into the booth. My phone buzzed again. I did not look right away. He leaned forward slightly and asked if everything was okay. His tone was soft, concerned. I glanced at my phone. New message. Stay seated. My stomach dropped. I froze. He noticed. He asked what it said. I could not answer. He reached across the table slowly like he was going to take my hand. I pulled my hand back. He stopped mid-motion. His expression shifted slightly. Not angry. Just calculating. My phone buzzed again. If you stand up, it gets worse. I felt trapped in that booth. The diner suddenly felt too quiet. I looked around. The other tables were empty. I did not remember them leaving. The waitress was not at the counter anymore. It felt like it was just us. He leaned closer and lowered his voice. He said, "I think you should calm down." At the exact same time, my phone buzzed. Calm down. The same words. I looked at him. His lips had not finished moving when the message appeared. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. I pushed my phone toward him across the table. I told him to explain. He looked at the screen, then back at me. Then he smiled slightly. Not wide. Just enough to show he was no longer pretending to be confused. He leaned back slowly. My phone buzzed again. Final warning. I stood up suddenly. I did not care what the message said anymore. I grabbed my bag and walked toward the door. My phone buzzed nonstop now. Over and over. The same message repeating. Don't make this harder. Don't make this harder. Don't make this harder. I pushed the diner door open and ran outside into the cold night air. I did not look back. I kept running until I reached a gas station down the street. Bright lights. People inside. I finally looked at my phone again. The app was closed. No new messages. When I opened Bumble, Heart Chat was gone. Unmatched. No record of him. I tried searching his name. Nothing. The next morning, I read a new notification. From Bumble. We're sorry your connection ended abruptly. Under it, one line. Some conversations are best left unfinished. I knew the date was off before she even said it. It was small things at first. The way she kept glancing at the exit. The way she asked questions that felt less like curiosity and more like setup. But I kept telling myself I was overreacting. It was a busy restaurant. People all around. Bright lights. Music playing. Nothing bad was going to happen in a place like that. Her name was Ivy. We matched on Hinge. Her profile was simple but intense. Close-up selfies. Dark lighting. Her bio said, "I hate wasting time." That should have been a warning. But I thought she just meant she was direct. We talked for 4 days. She was fast with replies. If I took too long, she would send a question mark. Not playful. Just a question mark. She asked where I lived early on. I told her the general area, but not specifics. She asked if I lived alone. I said yes. She said good. We agreed to meet at a tapas restaurant downtown. It was one of those places where tables are close together. Loud enough that you have to lean in to talk. I figured that was safe. Public. Crowded. When I got there, she was already seated at a small table near the wall. Not near the door. Not near the windows. Tucked into the middle of the room. She stood when she saw me, smiled, but it did not feel warm. It felt like she was checking something off. The first 20 minutes were normal. We ordered small plates. Talked about work. She worked in marketing, or at least that is what she said. She spoke confidently, like she was used to controlling conversations. Then she started asking more pointed questions. She asked how many serious relationships I had. She asked if I ever ghost people. She asked what I would do if someone embarrassed me in public. That one felt weird. I laughed and said I would probably leave. She tilted her head slightly and asked if I would leave calmly or make a scene. I said calmly. She nodded slowly. The restaurant was busy, waiters moving between tables, glasses clinking, conversations overlapping. It felt safe. At some point I mentioned I had an early morning the next day and might head out soon. Her expression shifted, just slightly. She leaned forward, elbows on the table. She asked if I was not enjoying myself. I said I was just tired. She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. She asked if I had somewhere better to be. I said no, just home. She asked if anyone was expecting me. I said no, I lived alone. She seemed to relax at that. Then she asked what would happen if I left right now. I laughed and said nothing. I would just pay and go. She stared at me for a long second. The noise of the restaurant felt distant suddenly. She leaned closer, so close I could feel her breath near my ear. And she whispered, if you try to leave right now, I will scream. I froze. For a second, I thought I misheard her. I pulled back slightly and looked at her. Her face was calm, almost amused. I asked what she meant. She did not repeat it loudly. She just leaned in again and said it softer. If you stand up and walk away, I will scream that you touched me. My chest felt like it collapsed inward. I looked around. The tables were packed. People close enough to hear if someone screamed. She leaned back in her chair and picked up her glass like nothing happened. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. I said quietly that was not funny. She shrugged and said she hates being left mid-meal. I told her I was not leaving mid-meal. She said good. Then she smiled. The rest of the conversation felt fake. I answered her questions automatically. My brain was racing. She kept her eyes on me the whole time. Every time I shifted in my seat, she watched carefully. I tried to signal the waiter with my eyes. He was too busy. I thought about standing up anyway, but the way she said it felt serious. Not dramatic. Not emotional. Calm. Like she'd rehearsed it. She started telling a story about a previous date. She said he tried to leave early. She said she made sure he did not. The way she said it made my stomach twist. I asked what she meant. She smiled and said he stayed. I glanced at the exit again. It felt far away now. I checked my phone on the table. I texted a friend quickly. Just come to this restaurant now. He did not reply right away. She noticed I was looking down. She asked who I was texting. I said work. She nodded, but her eyes narrowed slightly. She leaned in again and said, remember when I told you. My throat felt dry. I tried to think logically. If she screamed, what would happen? People would assume the worst. I would not have time to explain. In a place that crowded, it would be chaos. She knew that. She kept talking like nothing was wrong. Asked about my family. Asked about my childhood. I answered in short sentences. My friend finally replied asking what was going on. I told him just come. She noticed my phone buzz. She asked if I needed to take the call. I said no. She leaned closer again. She said you look like you were planning something. I forced a smile and said no. She studied my face. Then she did something that made it worse. She reached across the table and lightly touched my wrist. Not aggressive. Just enough that if she pulled away suddenly, it could look like I grabbed her. She looked down at where our hands almost met, then back at me. My heart was racing. I slowly moved my arm back to my side. She did not react. Just watched. The waiter finally came with a check. I grabbed it quickly and said I would cover it. She smiled and said, of course you will. I paid without even looking at the amount. I just wanted to get out. When the waiter walked away, I said I needed the restroom. She tilted her head. Then she said, if you do not come back, I will scream before you reach the door. My stomach dropped again. I asked why she was doing this. She said she hates being rejected. She said the app keeps matching her with men who leave early. She said she is tired of being the one abandoned. The word abandoned sounded heavy. I told her I was not abandoning her. She said then stay until I am done. She kept me there another 20 minutes. Talking. Watching. Waiting. Finally, my friend walked in. He texted me he was here. I raised my hand slightly and waved him over like he was just a coincidence. She saw him approaching. Her expression changed. For the first time, she looked uncertain. My friend sat down casually and greeted us. He pretended he just happened to be nearby. She forced a smile. The dynamic shifted. Now there was a witness. She leaned back in her chair. Her voice lost some of its edge. After a few awkward minutes, she said she had to leave. She stood up smoothly, looked at me one last time, and said, "I hope you learned something." Then she walked out of the restaurant calmly, like nothing happened. My friend asked what that was about. I just said it was weird. Later that night, I checked Hinge. She unmatched me. Her profile gone. 2 days later, I got a new match notification. Different name. Different photos. But the bio was the same. I hate wasting time. I almost stayed home that night because my hair would not cooperate. That sounds stupid, but it is true. I was standing in front of my mirror thinking about canceling over something that small. If I had, none of this would have happened. I would not think twice about random phone notifications. I would not replay one phrase over and over in my head like it is burned there. His name was Damon. We matched on Tinder after about a week of me barely swiping. His profile was simple. Clean photos. Neutral smile. One picture at a shooting range, which I noticed but did not overthink. Plenty of people go to ranges. It does not automatically mean anything. He messaged first, said he liked that I seemed grounded. I do not even know what that means, but it sounded thoughtful. We talked for 5 days. He was polite. Not overly flirty. He asked about my job, my family, what part of town I live in. I gave general answers, nothing too specific. We agreed to meet at a small brewery on the edge of downtown. Not a huge crowd, but enough people around that it felt safe. Long wooden tables. String lights across the ceiling. The kind of place where you have to lean in a little to hear each other, but not shout. When I walked in, he was already there. Sitting at the end of a table near the wall. Not isolated, but not in the center either. He stood when he saw me, smiled, firm handshake, calm. The first part of the date felt normal. We ordered drinks, talked about work. He told me about his job in security consulting. I did not ask for details. It sounded vague enough to be harmless. He had the steady presence. Not nervous. Not fidgety. Just composed. He made eye contact when I spoke, nodded at the right times. It almost felt rehearsed. About 40 minutes in and I started to relax. I remember thinking this is fine. This is one of the normal ones. Then his phone buzzed on the table. It was face up between us. The screen lit up bright in dim lighting. For a split second, before he reacted, I saw the notification. Target locked. That was it. 2 words. White text on a dark background. No app icon I recognized. My brain froze for a second. He moved fast, faster than he had moved all night. He flipped the phone face down immediately and slid it closer to his side of the table. He forced a small smile. Said sorry, work stuff. But his voice was slightly tighter than before. I felt my stomach drop. I asked what kind of work notification says target locked. He laughed lightly and said it is just internal project language. Internal project language. The phrase felt cold. I tried to brush it off. Maybe he was in marketing or something, and that was just weird phrasing. But I could not unsee it. The exact words were clear in my head. Target locked. I asked what kind of security consulting he does. He said mostly corporate risk assessment. He kept it vague. I noticed he did not flip his phone back over. He kept it face down. His posture shifted slightly after that. He leaned back more, watched me more closely. I became hyper-aware of everything. The way he glanced toward the door occasionally. The way he seemed to track who walked past our table. I told myself I was overthinking. The brewery was still full, groups laughing, Glasses clinking. Nothing felt dangerous. But then his phone buzzed again. He did not flip it this time. He just placed his hand over it casually, like shielding it. I could see the light from the screen reflecting faintly on his fingers. He did not check it right away. He kept talking to me. Asked if I felt comfortable walking home alone at night. The question felt random. I said I usually had a ride. He nodded slowly. Then he asked what time I usually leave places like this. I said it depends. He smiled slightly. The phone buzzed again. This time longer. He finally picked it up and glanced at the screen quickly. I saw his jaw tighten for a second before he flipped it back down. I tried to laugh it off and said your job seems intense. He said it can be. He leaned in slightly and asked if anyone knew I was here tonight. My chest tightened. I said a friend did. He nodded slowly. Then he asked if I share my location with anyone. I said sometimes. He did not comment on that. The music in the brewery felt louder suddenly. Or maybe I just felt more aware. I decided to test something. I reached for my phone and pretended to check a message. I sent my friend a quick text saying call me in 5 minutes. Then I looked back at him. He was watching my face. Not my phone. My face. Like he was measuring my reaction to something. His phone buzzed again. He did not move this time. But I saw the edge of the screen light up slightly against the table. I leaned forward just enough to catch a glimpse. This time I could not read the full message. Just one word. Confirmed. My pulse started pounding in my ears. I told him I needed to use the restroom. He nodded and said sure. As I stood up, he said, take your time. The same phrase someone else once said to me. It hit me wrong. I walked quickly to the bathroom area. My hands were shaking. I locked myself in a stall and took a deep breath. I opened Tinder. Our chat was still there. Normal. I checked his profile. Still active. Nothing strange. I opened my messages. Nothing new. I stared at my reflection in the mirror when I stepped out of the stall. I looked pale. When I returned to the table, he was exactly where I left him. Calm. Phone still face down. He asked if everything was okay. I said yeah. My phone buzzed. My friend calling. I answered and said I would step outside to take it. He nodded slowly. I grabbed my bag. As I turned to leave, his phone buzzed again. He picked it up this time. I saw his thumb swipe across the screen quickly. Then he stood up too. Said he would walk me out. I said that was not necessary. He insisted. The word insisted felt heavier than it should have. We walked toward the exit together. The cool night air hit my face when we stepped outside. My friend was still on the phone asking if I was okay. I told him yes, but stay on the line. Damon stood a few feet away while I talked. Watching. Not speaking. His phone buzzed one last time. He glanced at it. This time I saw the screen clearly. Mission paused. My heart stopped for a second. He locked his phone and slipped it into his pocket. Then he smiled and said he had an early morning. Said we should do this again. I nodded automatically. He walked toward the parking lot. I stayed near the entrance under the bright light. I watched him get into a dark car. He did not drive away immediately. He sat there for a moment. Then his headlights turned on. He drove past me slowly as he left. The next morning, I read a notification from Tinder. Your match has updated their location. I opened the app. His profile was gone. Unmatched. I searched his name. Nothing. Later that week, I was scrolling through social media and saw a news headline. It mentioned a man arrested in connection with surveillance-related incidents near downtown bars. No name was listed yet, but the photo attached looked familiar. I did not think anyone would ever make me nervous by being organized. That sounds ridiculous, but that is what it was. Not anger. Not obvious danger. Just organization. Clean, careful, detailed organization. If she had been chaotic or intense in a loud way, I would have left early Instead, she was calm, neat, methodical, and that made it worse. Her name was Celine. We matched on Hinge. Her profile was simple but interesting. One picture in a library, one at a park bench, one at what looked like a museum. Her bio said I like patterns. I remember thinking that sounded harmless. Maybe she just liked psychology or puzzles. We talked for about a week before meeting. She asked thoughtful questions. Not surface-level stuff. She wanted to know about my routines, my long-term goals, what I look for in people. It felt intentional, but not creepy at first. She suggested meeting at a quiet bookstore cafe that stays open late. I liked that idea. Public place, bright lighting, people around. It felt safe. When I walked in, she was sitting at a small table near the back, surrounded by tall shelves. She stood up when she saw me. She looked exactly like her photos. Dark hair pulled back neatly. Neutral expression that turned into a polite smile. The first half hour was fine. We ordered coffee, talked about books. She seemed genuinely interested in what I was saying. She nodded carefully, like she was storing everything. At one point, she asked how many dating app matches I had gone out with before. I shrugged and said a handful. She asked if I remembered their names. I said some of them. She nodded slowly. Then she said she remembers all of hers. The way she said it felt deliberate. I asked how many that was. She said enough. Then she smiled slightly and changed the subject. The cafe got quieter as the night went on. A couple near the window packed up their laptops. The barista disappeared into the back for a while. Celine reached into her tote bag and pulled out a tablet. I assumed she was going to show me something random, maybe a photo or a project she was working on. Instead, she unlocked it and turned the screen toward me. It was a folder, literally labeled matches. My stomach did a small drop. I laughed awkwardly and asked if she was serious. She nodded. Inside the folder were subfolders. Each one had a name. Male names. First and last. Some of them had small thumbnail photos next to them. I felt my throat go dry. I asked what that was. She said she keeps records. Records of what? She said outcomes. The word outcome to be wrong. I tried to keep it light and asked if she meant like journal entries. She said something like that. She tapped one of the folders and opened it. Inside were screenshots, profile pictures, chat logs, notes typed underneath. He prefers morning dates. He does not like loud environments. He cancels if pressured. My chest tightened. I asked why she kept all that. She said she likes to study patterns. There it was again. Patterns. She closed that folder and opened another. More screenshots. More notes. He ghosted after second date. He mentioned sister often. He lived alone. I noticed that line. He lived alone. She glanced at me briefly before closing that one. I forced a small laugh and said that is a little intense. She did not laugh. She said she invests time carefully. Then she scrolled. There were at least 20 names. Maybe more. Some had red dots next to them. Some had green. I asked what the dots meant. She said status. Status of what? She did not answer directly. Instead, she exited the folder view and created a new one. Right there in front of me. She typed slowly. My first name. Then my last. I felt like my heart stopped. I said, "You're joking, right?" She shook her head gently. She said it is just documentation. She tapped into the empty folder with my name. Blank page. Then she began typing notes while looking at me. Prefers coffee over alcohol. Maintains steady eye contact. Seems cautious. My skin felt cold. I asked her to stop. She looked up calmly and asked why. I said this feels invasive. She tilted her head slightly. She said you shared those details voluntarily. That made my stomach twist. I looked around the cafe. It felt smaller now. Like the shelves were closer. She kept typing. Mentions living situation indirectly. Unclear if alone. I felt panic rise in my chest. I told her I live alone. I do not even know why I said it. Maybe to control the narrative. She paused. Then she added that to the notes. Lives alone. She nodded slightly like that confirmed something. I asked what the red dots meant again. She finally answered. Red means unresolved. Green means complete. My chest felt tight. I asked what complete meant. She said the pattern concluded. That phrase made no sense, but also made too much sense. I asked what happened to the ones marked green. She smiled faintly and said some moved away. Some deleted their profiles. Some simply stopped responding. Stopped responding. She said it like it was a category. She scrolled again. There were folders marked green. More than red. My hands were sweating. I asked why she was showing me this. She said transparency builds trust. Trust. I said this does not feel transparent. It feels like a file system. She shrugged slightly and said it is efficient. She tapped back into my folder. Then she did something that made my stomach drop. She added a red dot next to my name. I asked what that meant. She said pending. Pending what? She did not answer. Instead, she added another note. Displays discomfort when confronted. I felt exposed. Like I was being measured. I told her I needed to leave. She looked at the tablet calmly. Then back at me. She said that would move you toward unresolved. Unresolved. I asked what happens to unresolved. She paused. Then she said sometimes they come back. Sometimes they do not. The way she said it felt layered. I stood up. She did not try to physically stop me. She just watched. Then she slowly changed the red dot next to my name to yellow. I froze. I asked what yellow meant. She said transitional. My heart was racing. I grabbed my jacket. She added one more note. Left early. Then she looked up at me and said, we will see where this goes. The cafe felt silent. I walked out without looking back. When I got home, I checked Hinge. She had not unmatched me. Her profile was still there. The next morning, I read a new notification. Celine sent you a message. I opened it. It was just one sentence. Status updated. I replayed that question in my head more than anything else. Not the way he looked. Not the place we were. Just that one sentence, said so casually it almost slid past me. If I had not been paying attention, I might have laughed it off. I might have answered without thinking, and that scares me more than anything. His name was Jonah. We matched on Hinge after a slow week of bad conversations. His profile felt normal. Pictures hiking, one in a kitchen cooking, one with friends at what looked like a birthday party. His bio said he liked quiet nights and long drives. Nothing dramatic. We talked for about a week. He was calm in messages. Not clingy. Not distant. He asked thoughtful questions. What I did for work. If I liked my apartment. If I live alone. I told him yes, I live alone. He said he did too. That felt like a neutral thing to bond over. We agreed to meet at a late-night food truck park on the edge of town. It was a weird spot. A bunch of food trucks arranged in a circle with picnic tables in the middle. String lights overhead. Not super crowded, but not empty either. It felt safe enough. When I got there, he was sitting at one of the outer picnic tables, facing the entrance. I noticed that right away. He had a clear view of anyone walking in. He stood when he saw me, smiled, hugged me lightly. It felt normal. We ordered tacos and sat down. The first half hour was fine. We talked about work stress, family, random stuff. He had a low voice that made everything sound calm. At some point, the crowd thinned out. A few groups left. The music from one of the trucks turned off. The air felt cooler. He asked if I liked living alone. I said yeah, mostly. He asked if I ever felt lonely. I shrugged and said sometimes, but I have friends nearby. He nodded slowly. Then he asked if I ever worry about safety. I laughed a little and said sometimes, but I am careful. He watched my face closely when I said that. Then, completely casually, like he was asking about the weather, he asked if anyone would notice if I did not come home tonight. The words landed heavy. I stared at him for a second, waiting for him to laugh. He did not. He just took a bite of his food and looked at me like he was genuinely curious. I tried to keep my tone light and said that as a weird question. He shrugged and said he was just asking. I said my friends would probably notice. He tilted his head slightly and asked how soon. My stomach tightened. I said I usually text someone when I get home. He nodded. Then he asked what if you did not text. I felt the air change around us. I said they would call. He asked how long before they worried. I forced a smile and said, "Why are you asking this?" He leaned back and said he studies behavior sometimes. Studies behavior. I asked what kind of behavior. He said response times. I felt a cold feeling slide through my chest. I told him that sounded like something you ask in a psychology class, not on a date. He smiled faintly and said dates are good for data. That line made my skin crawl. I looked around the food truck park. There were fewer people now. Maybe 3 other tables occupied. The string lights flickered slightly in the wind. I told him I had to be up early. He asked what time. I said 8 a.m. He asked if anyone would check on me before then. The question felt too pointed. I said yes. He leaned forward slightly and asked who. I did not answer that. Instead, I asked him if anyone would notice if he did not come home. He smiled. Then he said probably not. That answer hit me hard. He said it so casually, like it did not matter. My heart was pounding louder now. I checked my phone discreetly under the table. I had service. I texted my friend a simple message saying call me in 5 minutes. He noticed I was on my phone. He asked who I was texting. I said just a friend. He asked if they knew I was here. I said yes. He nodded slowly. Then he asked if they had my location. I lied and said yes. He paused. That was the first time I saw something flicker in his expression. A small crack in the calm. He leaned back and looked around the park. Then he said that complicates things. That phrase again. Complicates things. I felt like I was in the middle of something I did not understand. He asked if I trusted him. I said we just met. He nodded and said fair. Then he said sometimes people disappear and no one looked hard enough. My chest felt tight. I told him I do not think about that. He said he does. He said he thinks about how long it takes before someone is officially considered missing. I felt my throat go dry. I said that is not normal first date conversation. He smiled faintly and said most first dates are boring. My phone buzzed. My friend calling. I answered immediately and said I needed to step away to take this. He watched me stand up. As I walked a few steps away, I could feel his eyes on my back. I told my friend quietly that the date felt off. He told me to leave. I said I would. When I turned back toward the table, Jonah was standing now. Not sitting. Standing beside the picnic bench, watching me. He asked if everything was okay. I said yes, but I was going to head out. He asked why so suddenly. I said I had an early morning. He stepped slightly into my path toward the exit. Not aggressively. Just enough to make me adjust my direction. He asked again if anyone would notice if I did not come home. The question felt heavier this time. Not curious. Testing. I said yes, loudly enough for the nearby table to hear. Yes, people would notice immediately. He held my gaze for a long second. Then he smiled slowly. Said that is good. He stepped aside. I walked quickly toward my car without looking back. I locked the doors immediately after getting in. He did not follow. He stood under the string lights watching me drive away. When I got home, I double-checked my locks. The next morning, I read a notification from Hinge. Jonah unmatched you. No message. No trace. Later that week, I saw a missing person post on social media. A woman from a nearby town. Last seen at a late-night food truck park. I did not even notice the exact moment she unmatched me. That is what bothers me the most. We were mid-sentence. I was talking. She was listening. And somehow in that small gap between my words, she erased the only proof we had ever met. Her name was Camille. We matched on Tinder on a random Thursday night. Her profile stood out because it was simple. No filters. No dramatic poses. Just clear photos and a bio that said I prefer uncomfortable truths over comfortable lies. I remember thinking that sounded intense but refreshing. We talked for about 5 days. She was sharp in messages. Quick, direct. If I tried to joke around too much, she would steer the conversation back to something real. She asked about my family, my job, my routines. She liked specifics. We agreed to meet at a small cocktail bar downtown. It was tucked under a parking garage, kind of hidden. Dim lighting, concrete walls, quiet music, the kind of place that feels private even when it is not. When I walked in, she was already at the bar, not at a table. Sitting in a stool near the end, she looked exactly like her pictures. Dark hair, neutral makeup, calm eyes. The first part of the date felt normal. We ordered drinks, talked about work stress. She listened carefully like she was measuring every word I said. At some point, she asked what I looked for in someone. I started answering. I said something about honesty and stability. I was mid-sentence when I saw her glance down at her phone. She tapped the screen quickly. Then she looked back up at me and smiled. At that exact moment, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it at first because I was still talking. She interrupted me gently and said, "Check your phone." I felt a weird drop in my stomach. I pulled it out. Tinder notification. You are no longer matched with this user. I looked up at her. She was smiling. Not apologetic. Not confused. Satisfied. She said, "Good. Now we can be honest." The way she said it made my chest tighten. I asked why she unmatched me. She shrugged slightly and said she does not like records. Records. I asked what that meant. She said once you unmatch, the chat disappears. No screenshots unless someone already took them. No way to report specific lines. No history. She leaned closer and said now it is just a conversation between two people. I felt like the air shifted around us. I asked why she needed to erase the chat. She said because people curate themselves in writing. She said she wanted to see who I was without a script. I told her I was not scripting anything. She smiled faintly and said everyone is. I opened Tinder to confirm. Our entire conversation was gone. No messages. No profile. Nothing. Like she never existed on there. I felt exposed in a way I could not explain. She kept talking like nothing strange had happened. Asked me what I was about to say before she interrupted. My brain felt scrambled. I tried to remember my sentence. It felt irrelevant now. She asked if I felt different knowing there was no digital trace. I said yes. She nodded slowly and said good. Then she said now you cannot pretend this is temporary. Temporary. I asked what she meant. She said when people match, they always think there is an exit. They can't unmatch. Block. Report. Disappear. She took that away first. My heart was pounding. I told her that was manipulative. She did not deny it. She said she believes in controlling variables. There it was again. Variables. She asked if I had ever ghosted someone. I said yes, once or twice. She nodded. Then she asked how easy it felt. I said too easy. She smiled slightly and said exactly. The bar around us felt quieter. The bartender was at the far end, talking to another customer. No one was paying attention to us. She asked if anyone knew I was here tonight. I said a friend did. She asked if they knew her name. I hesitated. I realized I had not told anyone her name. Just that I was meeting someone. She noticed the pause. She said interesting. My chest felt tight. She leaned closer again and said now if you leave abruptly, it looks worse. I asked worse to who? She said to yourself. She said you will always wonder what I was going to say. I tried to stand up. She reached across the bar lightly and touched my wrist. Not aggressively. Just enough. She said sit. Not loudly. Just steady. I sat back down. I do not even know why. Maybe because I did not want to make a scene. Maybe because I felt like I had already lost control of something small and important. She said she studies attachment. I asked if she was a psychologist. She said not officially. That answer did not help. She asked what scares me most in relationships. I said being trapped. She smiled faintly. She said that is common. I checked my phone again. No trace of her anywhere on Tinder. It felt like she erased herself on purpose. She asked if I felt more exposed now. I said yes. She said good. Exposure reveals truth. The conversation shifted after that. She stopped pretending to be casual. She asked direct questions. Would you lie if you felt threatened? Would you fight if cornered? Would you stay calm under pressure? It felt less like a date and more like an assessment. I told her I did not like this. She said that is the point. I glanced for the door. It felt farther away than when I walked in. She noticed my glance. She said if you walk out right now, you will spend weeks wondering what I meant. That sentence hit deep. Because she was right. Curiosity is its own trap. I told her I needed air. She nodded slowly. Said go ahead. I stood up this time without hesitation. She did not try to stop me. She just watched. As I walked toward the exit, my phone buzzed. I froze. Even though we were unmatched. I looked down. No notification. Just a phantom vibration. I pushed the door open and stepped outside into the cool air. I did not look back. When I got home, I checked Tinder again. Still no sign of her. But later that night, I read a new message notification. From a different profile. No bio. One photo. It was her. The message said now we can start fresh. The first red flag was not even subtle. It was bold. It was loud. It was said with confidence like it had already been agreed on, like I had signed something I did not remember signing, and somehow that made it worse. If he had whispered it, maybe I could have brushed it off, but he said it clearly, proudly, and then refused to take it back. His name was Adrian. We matched on Hinge after I had deleted and re-downloaded the app out of boredom. His profile looked put together. Clean haircut, button-down shirts, one picture at what looked like a company event. His bio said he was serious about finding something real. I thought it just meant he was not into casual stuff. We talked for about a week before meeting. He was attentive. He remembered small details. He asked about my job and my family. He said he liked that I seemed grounded. It felt flattering at first. We agreed to meet at a cocktail bar downtown. It was one of those places with dim lights and velvet seats. Not too loud. A little upscale, but not intimidating. I got there a few minutes late because of traffic. He was already at the bar, not at a table, talking to the bartender like they knew each other. When he saw me, his face lit up in a way that felt almost too enthusiastic. He stood up, wrapped me in a quick hug, and turned back to the bartender. Then he said, "This is my girlfriend." He said it casually, like it was obvious. I laughed immediately, thinking it was a joke. The bartender smiled and nodded. I expected Adrian to correct himself. He did not. He kept talking like it was completely normal. He said we had been meaning to come in together. We. My stomach tightened. I nudged him lightly and said we just met. He laughed and said I was shy. Shy. He did not correct it. The bartender moved on to making drinks. I felt a weird shift in my chest. I told myself maybe he was just trying to be playful. We took our drinks to a small table near the back. I asked him why he introduced me like that. He shrugged and said it is easier. Easier for what? He said it avoids questions. I told him it creates questions. He smiled and said only for you. That line stuck with me. Only for you. The rest of the bar seemed normal. People talking quietly. Soft music playing. Glasses clinking. But I felt like something had tilted. He kept using language that implied more than a first date. He said things like when we travel and next time we are here. I corrected him once, saying if there is a next time. He smiled and said there will be. Not in a hopeful way, in a certain way. At one point, the bartender came back over and asked how long we had been together. Adrian did not hesitate. He said a few months. I felt my face go hot. I laughed and said that is not true. He put his hand lightly on my knee under the table. Not tight, but firm enough to make me freeze. He looked at me and said, "You're funny." Funny. The bartender laughed awkwardly and walked away. My heart was pounding. I leaned in and told him to stop saying that. He looked confused, like I was overreacting. He said it is just easier to frame it that way. Frame it. I asked what he meant. He said people treat couples differently. Safer. Safer. That word did not sit right. He asked if I felt uncomfortable. I said yes. He nodded slowly. Then he said, "You will get used to it." Get used to it. The bar felt smaller suddenly. I checked my phone under the table. Texted my friend that it was weird. He noticed. He asked who I was texting. I said a friend. He smiled and said, "You do not need to check in." I said I like to. He said, "Not when you are with me." The way he said it made my stomach twist. The bartender came back again and called me by a pet name Adrian had apparently told him. I did not even know that name. I corrected him quickly. The bartender looked confused. Adrian laughed and said she is picky about names. Picky. He did not correct the girlfriend thing once. Not even when I directly asked him to. He said it helps establish boundaries. I asked boundaries for who? He said for other men. He said people are less likely to approach if they think you are taken. Taken. I said I am not taken. He looked at me steadily and said not yet. The noise of the bar felt distant, like I was underwater. He asked if I ever think about labels. I said not on a first date. He said labels create stability. Stability. I tried to stand up and said I needed air. He stood up too. Put his hand lightly on my back like we were actually a couple. I pulled away. He laughed and said, "Relax." Outside, the night air felt sharp. I told him directly that introducing me as his girlfriend was not okay. He stared at me for a long second. Then he said, "You did not correct me fast enough." That sentence made my blood run cold. I asked what that meant. He said if you really did not want it, you would have stopped it immediately. I said I thought he was joking. He shrugged and said that is on you. On me. He sat closer and said people believe what they hear first. He said once it is established, it is harder to undo. Undo what? He did not answer. Instead, he said the bartender will remember you that way now. That line hit hard. He said if you come back here with someone else, it will be awkward. I felt like he had planted something permanent. Like he had written a story without my permission. I told him I was leaving. He did not try to grab me. He just smiled faintly and said good night. When I walked back inside to use the restroom before leaving, the bartender smiled at me and said take care. He called me by that pet name again. I corrected him. He looked confused. Said that is what your boyfriend called you. Boyfriend. Not even girlfriend now. It had already escalated. I left quickly. The next morning, I read a notification from Hinge. Adrian updated his relationship status. I opened the app. His profile now said in a relationship. When I tapped it, his photos were still there, but his bio had changed. Taken. I should have unmatched her the second she said she believed in fate. Not because believing in fate is weird. Plenty of people say that. But it was the way she said it. Not dreamy. Not romantic. Certain, like she had already read the ending of a book and was just waiting for me to catch up. Her name was Ilara. We matched on Hinge late one night when I was half paying attention to anything. Her profile had a kind of calm energy. Soft lighting in her photos. One picture standing in a field at sunset. Her bio said, "I do not believe in coincidences." I remember thinking that sounded poetic. We talked for about a week before meeting. She was different from other matches. She did not ask surface questions. She asked about patterns in my life. She asked if I ever noticed repeating themes in relationships. She asked what my longest streak on a dating app was. I joked and said I delete and re-download them all the time. She replied that cycles always end eventually. I did not think much of it. We agreed to meet at a planetarium that had late night shows. It was an unusual first date idea, but I liked it. Public, structured, a dark room full of strangers staring at fake stars. It felt safe in its own way. When I arrived, she was already inside near the ticket counter. She looked exactly like her photos. Long dark hair, pale skin, calm smile. We got tickets and sat in the back row of the dome. The room went dark. The artificial night sky lit up above us. For the first part, everything felt normal. We whispered small comments about the constellations, laughed quietly when the narrator mispronounced something. After the show ended, we stayed seated for a minute while most people filed out. She turned to me in the dim light and said she believes in fate. I smiled and said that is a big statement. She nodded slowly. Then she said that is why this is my final match. The way she said it made my chest tighten. I asked what she meant. She said she has been on the app for 3 years. She said she met dozens of men. She said none of them felt aligned. Aligned. She said she kept track of details. Not in a creepy way, she said. Just patterns. There was that word again. She said she noticed a cycle. Every time she felt close to someone, the app would suggest someone new. Every time she considered deleting it, a new match would appear. She said it felt like she was being redirected constantly. Redirected from what? She looked at me steadily and said, from you. My stomach dropped. I laughed awkwardly and said we just met. She shook her head. She said we have crossed paths before. I told her I would remember. She said not consciously. That sentence made my skin crawl. We walked out of the planetarium into the cool night air. The parking lot was mostly empty. She said she checked her app before coming tonight. She said it showed something different. I asked what. She said it did not show any new matches. No suggestions. Just you. I felt a small wave of unease. I told her maybe that is just how the algorithm works when you stop swiping. She smiled faintly and said I did not stop. I kept swiping, but nothing new appeared. Just you. The parking lot lights hummed softly overhead. I told her that it is probably just a glitch. She stepped closer and said it is not. She said she thinks the app has finished filtering. Finished filtering. I felt like I was standing in the wrong place. She said every other match disappeared from her inbox earlier that day. All chats gone. Just mine left. I pulled out my phone instinctively and opened Hinge. Our chat was still there. I scrolled through my messages. Other matches were still visible. I told her mine looks normal. She nodded slowly. She said that makes sense. I asked what that meant. She said fate is not symmetrical. The way she spoke felt rehearsed, but also deeply believed. She said this is my final match. Not yours. Mine. The emphasis felt deliberate. I asked what happens now. She said now the cycle ends. I laughed lightly and said that is dramatic. She did not laugh. She said I deleted the app on my way here. I told her that is a lot of pressure for a first date. She said it is not pressure if it is inevitable. I felt my heart start to race. I said, what if I do not feel the same way? She paused for a long moment. Then she said that would complicate things. Complicate how? She did not answer directly. Instead, she asked if I believe some people are meant to be removed from the path so others can continue. The question felt loaded. I said I do not think about people like that. She nodded slowly. She said she used to think she had options, but every option disappeared. Until me. I checked my phone again. Out of reflex. My Hinge notifications were quiet. No new likes. No new matches. Which was not unusual. But suddenly it felt significant. She asked if I planned to keep using the app. I said probably. She tilted her head and said that would be strange. I asked why. She said because it will not work anymore. The way she said it was so confident that it made my chest tighten. We walked toward our cars. The parking lot felt too open, too quiet. She stopped beside my car instead of hers. She said, "You not see it yet, but you will." I asked what I would see. She said that this was always going to happen. I told her I need time to figure out how I feel. She smiled softly and said time is part of the design. That sentence made no sense but felt heavy. I got into my car and locked the doors. She stood there watching for a few seconds before walking to her own car. On the drive home, I opened Hinge again. Refreshed the page. Nothing new. I told myself I was overthinking. The next morning, I read a notification. Hinge could not find new matches in your area. That had never happened before. I refreshed again. Same message. I adjusted my filters. Widened the distance. Still nothing. No new profiles. My chat list was shorter too. A few old conversations had vanished. I felt a cold weight settle in my chest. Later that day, I got a message from her. From a different number. It said, "I told you." No greeting. No explanation. Just that. I checked Hinge again. My profile now showed limited visibility. No explanation why. I tried logging out. The app crashed. When I reopened it, only one chat remained. Hers. Even though she said she deleted it. Under her name, a small line appeared. Final match confirmed. I stared at it for a long time. I thought blocking him would be enough. I really did. I blocked his number, unmatched him, deleted the app. Even restarting my phone like that would somehow wipe everything clean. I remember sitting on my bed afterward feeling stupid for how shaken I was. It was just a bad date. Just a weird guy. That is what I kept telling myself. His name was Tyler. We matched on Tinder on a random Wednesday night. His profile looked normal. Gym photos, one with a dog, one blurry group picture at a party. His bio said he liked spontaneous nights and hated games. That sounded harmless. We talked for maybe 4 days before meeting. He was charming at first. Quick replies. Light teasing. He asked what part of town I live in, but I only gave a general answer. He asked if I had roommates. I said no, I live alone. He said same. We met at a late-night diner near the highway. It was open 24 hours, bright lights, booths with cracked red leather. It felt public enough to be safe. There were other people there. A couple truck drivers. 2 college girls sharing fries. At first, everything was fine. He was funny. A little intense with eye contact, but not unbearable. He asked about my job, my family, my routine. Then he started asking about my schedule in detail. What time I usually get home from work. If I ever work late. If I run in the mornings or evenings. I laughed and asked if he was building a calendar. He smiled and said he just likes knowing patterns. Patterns. I brushed it off. But then he asked if anyone would notice if I skipped work for a few days. The question felt random. I said probably. He asked who. I said coworkers, friends. He nodded slowly. Then he asked if anyone tracks my location. I said no. He smiled faintly. The rest of the date felt slightly off after that. He kept glancing at his phone. Once I noticed he angled it away from me when he checked something. After about an hour, I told him I had to head out. He asked if he could walk me to my car. I said sure. The parking lot was dim. A few cars scattered around. I unlocked mine quickly. Before I got in, he asked if I ever share my live location with people for safety. I said sometimes with friends. He asked if I was sharing it now. I said no. He nodded like he was storing that information. I drove home feeling uneasy but not terrified, just uncomfortable. That night, he texted me saying he had a good time. I replied politely but vaguely. The next day, he texted again, asked what I was doing that night. I said I was busy. He kept texting. When I did not reply for a few hours, he sent a message asking if I was ignoring him. That felt like a red flag. I told him I did not think we were a good match. His reply came instantly. That is not how this works. My stomach dropped. I blocked his number. Then I opened Tinder and unmatched him. Then, because I felt weirdly paranoid, I deleted the app entirely. I even went into my phone settings and checked location permissions. Tinder was gone. No access. I felt a small wave of relief. That night, I locked my doors, turned off my lights, and tried to move on. Around midnight, my phone buzzed on my nightstand. I jumped. I assumed it was a spam notification or something random. I rolled over and picked it up. The screen was black except for a single notification banner. No app icon. Just text. Match confirmed. Location shared. My heart felt like it stopped. I stared at it, trying to process what I was reading. The app was deleted. I had blocked him. There was no match to confirm. I tapped the notification. The screen went completely black. Then it flickered. A map appeared. Not Google Maps. Not any app I recognized. Just a dark background with a glowing dot. The dot was labeled with my first name. Under it were coordinates. Accurate ones. My exact location. My apartment building. My hands started shaking. I closed the screen immediately. Opened my settings. No app open. No new downloads. Nothing. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The notification disappeared after a few seconds, like it had never existed. I checked my text messages. Nothing new. No missed calls. I told myself it was some kind of glitch. A delayed notification. I restarted my phone again. When it powered back on, everything looked normal. No strange apps. No map. I forced myself to sleep. The next morning, I tried to shake it off. Went to work like normal. All day, I kept checking my phone. No new notifications. I almost convinced myself I imagined it. That night, I was sitting on my couch when my phone buzzed again. Same type of notification. Black background. White text. Match active. Under it, a small line. Proximity detected. My blood ran cold. I tapped it this time. The same dark map appeared. But now there were two dots. One labeled with my name. The other unlabeled. Just blinking. The second dot was close. Very close. On my street. I felt my throat tighten. I ran to my window and pulled the curtain aside slightly. The street below looked normal. A couple parked cars. No obvious movement. My phone buzzed again. The second dot moved. Closer. Right outside my building. I felt frozen. I wanted to call someone, but my hands would not stop shaking. Then the second dot stopped moving. Directly under mine. The two dots almost overlapping. My phone screen flickered. Text appeared under the map. Arrival confirmed. I backed away from the window slowly. My apartment felt too quiet. Too small. Then I heard it. A faint sound at my door. Not knocking. Just the handle shifting slightly. Like someone testing it. My heart felt like it was going to burst. The phone buzzed one last time. Door access unavailable. Please wait. I stared at the screen in disbelief. Then it went black. Completely black. No map. No text. Just my normal home screen. The door handle stopped moving. Silence. I did not sleep at all that night. The next morning, I read a news alert about a data breach involving a major dating app. User location exposure. Temporary glitch. Temporary. But when I opened my phone settings to double-check location permissions again, Tinder was listed under recently used apps. I had deleted it.